Chapter 51, Cooperation. Hisoka shook his head decisively after hearing Illumi's persuasion. No, I'm here to participate in this exam seriously this time. If I kill an examiner, I will be eliminated. Didn't I say you will kill her without anyone discovering it? Illumi said. Hisoka shook his head and replied, the target is a one-star hunter. She's not some trash that I can kill in seconds. Moreover, the head examiner has a partner. It's almost impossible to kill her discreetly. Then, I will take care of the fat man. Illumi persuaded. That's... Hisoka seemed to think about it seriously now. Allan was stunned there as he saw the two of them planning a murder in plain sight. But if they killed both Menshi and Boera, then the whole second part of the exam will be invalid. In other words, his advantage as a transmigrator will be gone. Allan decided to stop the two from killing Menshi. Before he could even speak, the system's notification sound echoed in his head. Ding! Please make a choice. 1. Prevent Illumi and Hisoka from assassinating the examiners so that the exam can continue as normal. Reward, Naruto, Konoha Secret Taijutsu Techniques. 2. Join Illumi and Hisoka in assassinating the examiner. Reward, One Piece, Okama Fist Art. This. Allan was powerless as he saw the rewards. The system even gave him the Okama Fist technique as a reward. It means the techniques belonged either to Mr. Two, Bone Clay, or to Ivankov of the Revolutionary Army. No matter who it belonged to, he won't choose this Okama Fist art. The thought alone made him feel disgusted. It's the first time that he felt disgusted by a reward from the system. However, even if it were another reward, Allan would still choose the first option. The risk of changing the exam was too great for his liking. He needed to hold to his advantage, or else no one will know what will happen later. Allan decisively chose the first option. Hey, guys, stop saying that you will kill the examiners like it's something normal. Illumi looked at Allan in confusion. Why? Rather than assassinating them and making the association change the examiner, wouldn't it be easier to cooperate? So, what do you mean by cooperating? Hisoka asked curiously. Allan glanced at the do and said, I will tell you how to make sushi, or I will make 2 for each of you to give to the examiner. If you pass the test, you will owe me 1. A favor, how about it? Sounds good, Hisoka said with narrowed eyes. Then, what do you want to do with that favor? Killing. Illumi asked. What the hell is wrong with you? Is killing all you can think about? Allan almost exclaimed loudly. He rolled his eyes at Illumi. But it was expected, after all, Illumi was from a family renowned for having the best assassins in the world. Hisoka reacted differently from Illumi as he squinted and asked, so, what do you want us to do? Allan waved his hand and said, I don't know for now, but if I want something, I may trouble you. Anyway, you have to remember that you owe me a favor. That's okay. Hisoka nodded. However, it sounds like we are on the losing side here, Illumi commented. He was a killer and never made a loss when doing business. Because of this, he doesn't want to owe favors to others. Allan was worried that this guy wouldn't cooperate, so he quickly assured him, don't worry. I won't ask for too much. If it's within your power, you do it, but if you don't want to, then you can refuse, and you will still owe me a favor. In short, this is sincere cooperation, don't worry. In that case, I agree. Illumi thought for a while and agreed in the end. Let's do it this, Hisoka said more readily. It was apparent that he didn't want to kill the examiner with Illumi, and cooperating with Allan was the better option. Allan was relieved as both of them agreed. He waved his hand at them and said, then, both of you can go back to the exam venue. First, I will give you your share there. Shouldn't we do it ourselves? Illumi asked. Allan shook his head, no, even if I tell you how to make sushi, you have no experience, and so it won't taste delicious. Both Hisoka and Illumi were almost depressed by this, but they admitted that he was right. They knew nothing about cooking. They didn't say anything else after agreeing with Allan. Allan will take care of everything and give them the sushi so they can pass the exam later. Illumi waved his hand and said, then Hisoka and I will go back first. By the way, Killua must also pass. I came to the exam for him. If he fails, there would be no meaning to this. Allan made an okay gesture toward Illumi. Illumi's weakness was Killua. He was the key to negotiating with Illumi. Therefore, he will definitively make Killua pass the test. Of course, there is also Gon. Allan firmly believed that a good relationship with the protagonist would be full of benefits later. There also his farsight in this matter. Allan believed that the protagonist will always defeat the villain in the end. Illumi and Hisoka left, and Gon and Killua finally came out of the lake. Both of them caught a lot of seafood. Allan greeted them and told them to rush back with the seafood, and he will be right after them. Chapter 52, Making Sushi. Allan deliberately stayed behind to try Konoha's taijutsu secret techniques. The reward included Leaf Whirlwind, Konoha Senpu, a swift leg-based sweep or aerial attack that causes considerable damage to the receiving party. Leaf Gale, Konoha Reppu, the user delivers a spinning low kick from behind. Leaf Great Whirlwind, Konoha Daisenpu, a series of kicking attacks, starting from a low kick and linking into a middle kick and high kick, then finishing off with a heel drop. Leaf Strong Whirlwind, Konoha Goriki Senpu, the user concentrates all his skill into a spinning backward kick. Leaf Rising Wind, Konoha Shofu, using a high kick to disarm the opponent. Remark: Might Guy uses all the versions above. Yet, there is another ultimate secret technique, Konoha Secret Finger Art, 1000 Years of Pain, Kakashi version. The experience of using Konoha's taijutsu techniques were now imprinted into his brain. He didn't need to train hard to use them. It was as if the system passed Might Guy's and Kakashi's 1000 Years of Pain experience to Allan, allowing him to master those moves directly. Leaf Strong Whirlwind. Allan swiftly kicked a huge tree and snapped it in half. This power was unparalleled. The power he exerted surprised him much. He already lacked close combat techniques, but with Konoha's taijutsu techniques, he patched a huge shortcoming he had. The next time he encounters someone like Yuvajin, he is confident in his close combat. Allan noticed many candidates didn't leave the venue. It seems that they didn't know how to make sushi and were about to go crazy here. As for Menchi, she didn't seem to care at all. She only reminded them that the essential ingredient of sushi is rice. Other than that, she gave no hint. As soon as they saw Allan, they were filled with hope. They already guessed that sushi needed seafood when they saw Gon and Killua, bringing in various seafood. The examiner already provided rice and many other ingredients, so they need to go and catch some fishes. However, they didn't understand the proper depth of making sushi. Allan ignored them and ordered Gon and Killua to wash the fishes and shrimps. Gon asked, "Allan, do you need any help?" Allan waved his hand and said, "No, you just need to stay back and leave the rest to me." Gon nodded obediently and said to Killua, "Okay, Killua, let's not disturb Allan." Killua nodded and followed Gon back. When Allan was about to start making sushi, the systematic voice echoed inside his head. 1. Make a sushi that Examiner Menchi would admire. Reward: a storage ring. 2. Make a sushi that would give Examiner Menchi diarrhea. Reward: a great steel sword. Although the sword was good, Allan didn't need a weapon right now. It wasn't his style. So obviously, Allan picked the first option. Of course, that wasn't the reason for choosing the first option. If he gives Menchi a dish that will cause her diarrhea, she would eliminate him and beat him up. It wasn't right to offend an examiner for a sword. But it wasn't easy to make Menchi admire his dish. Fortunately, Allan used to work part-time in a sushi restaurant and has a certain degree of understanding of how to make it. At least, he had a unique advantage compared to the hundreds of candidates here. He believed that he couldn't pass this part of the exam, then no one can. The examiner prepared a kitchen counter for each candidate and gave them necessary kitchen tools. Most of the ingredients were provided here, like vinegar, wasabi, seaweed, spices, and kitchen tools like knives, sinks, etc. There are many types of sushi, and Allan decided to make nigiri sushi. The ingredients needed for nigiri sushi are simple: rice, vinegar, fish fillet. The production steps were: 1. Pinch the rice to form a ball in your hand and then press the rice into the fish fillet. Gently knead it into shape till the rice and fish fillet are tightly joined. 2. Fold the seaweed inward, stick the rice to form a cup shape, and then fill the top with fish roe. Following these steps, Allan made 4 copies of this sushi for Illumi, Hisoka, Gon, and Killua. Chapter 53, The Strict Menchi. The taste of sushi was almost the same everywhere. That's why the appearance was important. The appearance of sushi must be up to standards. It should be neat and clean that it makes people swallow their saliva just looking at it. Allan put 5 pieces of nigiri sushi together and called Gon and Killua over. Gon and Killua looked at the sushi in awe and exclaimed, "Wow! Allan, is this sushi?" Gon asked in surprise. Allan nodded and asked, "What do you think?" "It looks amazing." Gon nodded heavily. "What do you think, Killua?" Allan asked. "Although it's the first time I saw sushi, it is similar to what I've imagined. So there shouldn't be any problem," Killua replied. The sushi Allan made was the same as the one Killua imagined, which made him feel strange. "In that case, you can give those to the examiner first." Hearing this, Killua and Gon nodded. Allan briefly talked about the type of sushi he made. After both of them remembered everything, they directly went toward Menshi for the evaluation. Menshi sat down while discussing with Boera about how many can pass this test. The conclusion they came up with was 0. In the venue, examines were bringing their sushi for evaluation one after the other. What the hell? Are those candidates all stupid? Redo. Redo. What kind of crap is this? Go back and redo it. The candidates didn't know what sushi is, so they just put a fish into the rice and brought it for evaluation. For a food hunter like Menshi, this was an insult to cuisine. At this time, a bald youth stepped out to give his dish to Menshi. "Haha, a bunch of idiots. Now, I will be the first one to pass this part of the exam." With absolute confidence in himself, Hanzo stepped forward with Kurapika and Leorio behind him and showed the sushi to Menshi. "Oh!" Menshi, who wasn't expecting anything special, smiled, "Well, finally, some decent sushi." "Hey, of course, I made this with great effort," Hanzo said confidently. Kurapika and Leorio, who heard this, gained some confidence as well. Both of them learned how to make sushi together from Hanzo, and their sushi looked decent. Judging by appearance alone, they passed. "Don't be too happy, although it looks good. I have to taste it myself." Menshi picked one and took a bite. Then she took one each from Kurapika and Leorio's plate and took a bite. "No, this tastes bad. Take it back and redo it. Also, all 3 of yours taste the same," Menshi said casually. When Hanzo heard the evaluation, his confidence crumbled as he felt slight anger. "Smelly woman, you are making things difficult for us. Form a ball of rice in your hand, then add slices of sashimi and wasabi with vinegar. It's one thing to want us to make sushi, and another thing if you want to eat a 5-star dish here, okay?" Suddenly, all the candidates who were attracted by the yelling Hanzo understood how to make sushi. Hanzo's teeth trembled in anger. At this time, Menshi snorted, "What are you talking about, you baldy? You just learned a few things, and you think you're the best. Are you the examiner, or am I? Damn it!" Although he was unconvinced, Hanzo had gone and told every participant in this exam how to make sushi. At this time, Gon and Killua came to the examiner and gave her the sushi Allan made. Menshi was angry because of Hanzo, so when she saw Gon and Killua, she said, "You two, aren't you afraid after what I did to that baldy? Be careful if I will beat you up if I don't like the sushi. Why don't you take a look first, Examiner-san?" Gon smiled. "Yes, Examiner-san, don't vent your anger on innocent people. Let the cooking speak." Killua followed. "What stinky brats, you dare rebut me?" Menshi curled her lips unhappily. Then she was stunned when she saw the sushi Gon and Killua brought. "OJ? Nigiri sushi and roe battleship sushi. How is it?" Gon asked, hopefully. "Is this made by you too?" Menshi took a deep breath and asked in disbelief. Because of the appearance alone, this sushi was a grade higher than Hanzo and the others. It's neat and in uniform size, which made her want to eat them. "You pass in terms of appearance, but I still have to taste it." Menshi prepared herself and gave it a bite. Chapter 54, Behind the Scene. "I say, did you make this?" After tasting the sushi served by Gon and Killua, Menshi couldn't help asking with surprise. Not only did the sushi look good, but it also tasted utterly okay. It was kind of hard to believe that the 2 small boys made this sushi. Because the preparation may be simple, achieving such a presentation level was complicated and required a lot of effort. Gon and Killua didn't look like the type to be into cooking. In fact, Gon was never a good liar, so after the repeated questioning of Menshi, he was about to reveal the truth. Killua noticed this and immediately covered Gon's mouth and said, "Yes, we made them." He was smart and knew that as soon as Gon mentioned that this was prepared by someone else, Menchi would severely criticize them and remake the sushi themselves. After all, it is definitively an insult to a food hunter if someone used someone else's food as their own, not just an insult to the hunter, but also an insult to the food itself. They would end up eliminated for that. Menchi could tell that Killua was lying, but she didn't expose him. Instead, she just questioned, "You two made the exact same sushi, both of you made nigiri sushi and roe battleship sushi. Aside from how it looks, the taste is the same as well, which means that the same person prepared them. That's because we have a good relationship. As for the taste, our level is the same, so the taste is also the same," Killua defended. Gon just nodded without uttering a word. "Since you are so sure of yourself, make one in front of me now. We'll see if it's the truth or not then." "Ah, what?" Gon and Killua exclaimed at the same time. Both looked at Menchi in a daze as they didn't expect her to be so harsh. Menchi crouched down and said, "What? Are you worrying about something? If you tell me the truth, I can forgive you this time. After all, both of you are cute. So, you can relax." "Hey, wait for us," Killua said as he took Gon away. "I'll wait for you." Menchi smiled, then she seriously warned, "If you dare deceive me, I will definitively eliminate you both." After leaving, Killua was unhappy as he cursed, "That damn, stinky, woman is making this difficult on purpose." "What should we do now, Killua?" Gon asked. "There is no other way than asking Allan to teach us a step-by-step." Gon nodded as he accepted the proposal, "Yeah, good idea. What happened? What's the result?" Seeing Gon and Killua coming back, Allan asked curiously. "I'm sorry we failed." Gon sighed. "Why?" Allan was taken aback as he murmured, "I tried it just now, and it tastes good. If this doesn't guarantee a pass, then no one will pass." Killua shook his head, "No, we didn't mean that the sushi wasn't good. On the contrary, because the sushi was good, we were suspected by the examiner." Allan realized the problem, "So she asked you to come back and do it again, right?" Gon nodded and said, "Yeah, and she also said that she would observe how we make the sushi later." Allan frowned, "This will be hard. Even if it's hard to do, we can't just give up. I can only ask you to teach us how to make sushi now. Gon and I will try mastering it as fast as we could." Ding! Please make a choice. 1. Agree to Gon and Killua's request and personally teach them how to make sushi. Reward, physical strength increase by 100 points. 2. Reject Gon and Killua's request and discourage them from completing the hunter exam. Reward, mushy mushy no mi, insect devil fruit, model, praying mantis. Allan planned to teach both of them, which he would do regardless of the reward. However, he was much surprised by the reward nonetheless, because a devil fruit appeared this time. Allan wasn't impressed by the devil fruit itself. After all, it was a weak Zoan fruit at most. Maybe if he ate it, his agility would skyrocket as a praying mantis was agile. Generally, whoever ate a Zoan devil fruit can transform into an animal, but the Zoan users were too ugly, and it was completely unacceptable. If it were Logia or Paramecia, Allan would be tempted, but it was just a Zoan-type fruit. Allan broke his train of thoughts and directly replied, "Well, hurry up and follow me to clean the fishes first, then slice it and start shaping the rice into balls to make nigiri sushi." Understood. Gon and Killua answered like good students. Illumi and Hisoka, who just received the sushi Allan made, went to the examiner for evaluation. "Did you make these yourselves?" Menchi tasted Illumi and Hisoka's sushi and suddenly felt her IQ insulted. Why? Because it was the same taste as the sushi Gon and Killua served before. Not only the appearance but also the taste. Therefore, from her years of experience, she knew that the same person made this sushi. In other words, whether it is Gon, Killua, Hisoka, or Illumi, all of their sushi was made by someone else. Who was this person? Menchi got curious. After she sent Illumi and Hisoka away, Menchi started wandering back and forth in the venue before her eyes landed on Allan. Chapter 55, 55 Passers. About an hour later, and with Allan's careful guidance, Gon and Killua finally mastered the basics of making sushi. Allan gave their sushi a passing review when he tried it. "Although I'm not sure whether you can pass Examiner Menchi's requirement, I think this is the best you can do now. After all, there is a time limit, and if you can't pass even with this, we can do nothing about it. Gon and Killua nodded as they understood this as well. It only took them an hour to learn how to make sushi, and it was all they can do as the exam's time limit restricted them. Menshi will decide on whether they pass or not. He can do nothing now. Both Illumi and Hisoka also came to Allan because they were in the same situation as Gon and Killua. With no other way around it, Allan spent dozens of minutes teaching both of them as well. Fortunately, they were fast learners. While they were learning, Menshi was looking at them. Allan, who was supposed to be the first to finish the test, became the last one instead. But he didn't have any choice in this matter since he had to teach Gon, Killua, Hoska, and Illumi. Fortunately, all four of them brought good news after going to Menshi for evaluation. The four of them passed, and with this, Allan breathed a sigh of relief. My effort didn't go in vain, Allan thought almost with a tear in his eye. He also received his reward from the system, and his physical strength increased by 100 points. The increment in his physical strength didn't just mean raw power, but all aspects of his body were enhanced. The improvement covered his speed, strength, immunity, nervous system, 5 senses, and so on. Half an hour later, Allan moved toward Menshi to serve his sushi, which made all eyes lock on him and Menshi. Right now, he was the only one who still didn't submit his sushi for evaluation yet. Menshi gave every candidate 2 opportunities to make sushi, and there is no third time. As soon as they failed twice, they would be eliminated instantly. So, you are the one who helped the 4 cheaters, Gon, Killua, Hisoka, and Gitaraker, Illumi's false identity, right? Allan was speechless for a moment as he didn't find any way to refute her words. He knew he was caught red-handed. For those who help others cheat, I usually eliminate them directly. However, considering the fairness of the test, I gave each candidate 2 opportunities. So this is considered as your second and last chance. I see. Allan nodded and brought his sushi for Menshi to inspect. Please. This is. Seeing Allan's sushi, Menshi was quite surprised. Allan directly said, yes, I made Hako sushi. The Hako sushi or box sushi is simply putting various ingredients together, such as rice, eel, shrimp, and so on, inside a wooden box, press them then cut them into sushi pieces. They will look like a box, hence the name. This is the best sushi Allan can make, and he was sure that he could pass. Menshi picked a piece and gave it a bite. The assistant examiner, Boera, sitting behind Menshi, swallowed hard, it looks so delicious. 1, 2, and 3. After eating the third piece, Menshi realized that everyone was staring at her. Menshi blushed and said, although I don't want to admit it, this sushi is delicious, and the only one here that can receive such a review. Thank you. Allan breathed a sigh in relief. At the same time, the systematic voice rang in his head. Ding! The sushi you made have won Menshi's approval. Reward, a storage ring. A second later, Allan felt something on his right middle finger, and as he looked, he saw an obsidian ring. This is the storage ring the system rewarded him with. The storage ring had 10 cubic meters of space inside, which can store everything except living beings. To store things, he only needed to touch the item with the ring, and taking them out was simpler as he only needed a mental command for an item to be brought out. Allan was quite satisfied with this reward because as long as he has this ring, he would have a mobile storehouse wherever he went. The ring weighed less than 50 grams, which is almost the same as not wearing anything at all. At this time, Gon and Killua came over, and the former instantly said, Allan, thank you. Killua put his hands in his pocket and said with a cool expression, thank you. Allan waved his hand. But he gained 2 favors out of this. Gon and Killua felt like they owed Allan for his help, but this was just an investment made by Allan. He would gain 10 or even 100 times what he gave today in that investment. And with no risk as to speak. After a while, Hisoka and Illumi walked over and thanked Allan. I couldn't pass without you. Hisoka squinted and smiled. We owe you a favor, Illumi said. Allan smiled and said, just remember that. So, about 55 candidates passed the second test of the second part of the exam. Menshi eliminated the rest. In addition to Kurapika, Leorio, Hanzo, and the others, Crollo, Uvijin, and Pakunoda passed as well. Pakal and Ponzu passed along with others like Saiper and Badaro. Actually, the sushi they made either looked bad or tasted terrible, but Menshi reduced the test's difficulty, allowing them to pass. The reason was simple: if she actually judged them according to her standards, only Hanzo, Crollo, and Allan would pass. It can be said all the others basked in the light of those three. Chapter 56, Weird Flying Beasts Attack. After completing the second part of the exam, the candidates boarded an airship prepared by the association to transport them into the third part of the exam. The airship flew slowly in the dark night sky with an altitude of more than 1,000 meters. To ensure that the candidates didn't go with an empty belly, the association also prepared the meals for the candidates boarding the ship. After an entire night, the airship landed on top of a tall tower where the third part of the exam will start. This tower is called the Trick Tower, which is a place holding hundreds of cruel criminals. This test's goal is simple: everyone needs to reach the bottom of the tower within 72 hours, whether in a group or alone. 48 candidates are participating in this part of the exam right now. I wish everyone the best of luck. Goodbye. The pilot instantly got into the airship to leave the tower. Hey, wait. There were 55 candidates, right? Why are there only 48 now? Gon, Killua, Leorio, and the other had the same question. All the examines present had the same question because 7 people were missing. Only a few people knew the inside story. The 7 candidates were killed in the airship. To not cause panic, the examiner accompanying the candidates withheld the information. Killua put his hands in his pocket and with coolly, "Gon, someone killed them." Really? Gon was doubtful. Killua looked at Allan and said, "If you don't believe me, you can ask Allan. He knows about this." Gon immediately looked at Allan. Were the 7 missing people really killed Allan? Allan nodded. Not only does he know that they were killed, but he also knows who killed them. Late last night, Hisoka killed 4 people in the bathroom because those 4 accidentally blocked his path. He was as dangerous as they come. And the other 3 were killed by Crollo and Yuvajin in an aisle. Because there was no proof of the killing, the examiner let it go as this was not the only time people die in the exam, and it won't be the last. It would not be against the rules if the examiner didn't see it happen. As for the killing purpose, none whatsoever. When someone becomes dangerous, it's when he kills for the sake of killing. Because even if you don't offend him, he will hunt you. When dealing with those kinds of psychopaths, you will have to be extremely vigilant. After a while, everyone focused on their objective and forgot about the 7 missing candidates. The top of the tower was hundreds of meters high and looked like a large chimney. At this time, an examinee who was confident in his climbing skills decided to go down the tower directly. He seemed to forget that this wasn't a typical tower. As he climbed about 10 meters down, an alarm sound echoed out of the building, and a group of strange birds with 6 legs appeared, making loud noises. They were the 6-legged flying beast. The 6-legged flying beast grabbed the climber using its claws and flew up before it started eating. The examines who were looking at this all threw away any thought of climbing down. At the same time, they were rejoicing that it wasn't them that ended miserably like that. However, when they sighed in relief, they found out that the 6-legged flying beasts were looking straight at them after eating the unfortunate examinee. "Hey, they are coming toward us," Leorio shouted as he grabbed the dagger he carried in his pocket. These monsters were strong, they can tear a person's body quickly, and everyone here already witnessed that, so when they were attacking now, no one slacked off. As long as they maintain enough composure, they can efficiently deal with them. But those 6-legged flying beasts came in waves. In just a few minutes, a few hundred of them gathered near the tower. The 6-legged flying beasts considered the candidates on top of the tower as their lunch. Chapter 57, Fighting the Monsters. The third test had already started when the climber triggered the alarm and attracted the flying beasts. At this moment, the candidates were fending off the 6-legged flying beasts that vastly outnumbered them. Furthermore, they were at a disadvantage since there was nowhere to hide on top of the tower. Therefore, many candidates were fighting and taking down as many beasts as possible to ensure their survival. However, amongst the candidates, there are some extraordinary monsters. They were scarier than those 6-legged flying beasts. Suddenly, several playing cards shot out like darts from Hisoka's hand, killing 2 6-legged flying beasts simultaneously. His playing cards were as sharp as a blade. At the same time, Illumi pulled out 2 needles from his face, jumped up, and pierced the brains of 2 6-legged flying beasts. As a first-class manipulator, Illumi can use the needles to disguise himself and also control his targets. The six-legged flying beasts that were hit by Illumi's needles were now like puppets under his control as they started attacking their companions. I thought that you could only use your needles on people. I didn't think you would use them on monsters as well. This really opened my eyes. Hisoka said. Illumi turned his head, pulled another needle from his face, and said blankly, Hisoka, do you want me to stick one in you as well? I will control you that way. Don't do it. You will ruin me. Hisoka squinted with a smile. Illumi. While Hisoka flirted with Illumi, Crollo was dealing with the monsters as well. Ryuudan was just one punching the six-legged flying beasts. One punch was enough to kill one monster. Pakunoda was holding her pistol and killing the six-legged flying beasts from a distance without leaving them any chance to get close. Nen strengthened the bullets, and as soon as it touches a monster, he would explode. She could only shoot 6 bullets and then wait 6 seconds to shoot again, and that's her only disadvantage. It takes 1 second to form a bullet. That's the reason Pakunoda had to wait 6 seconds. Therefore, Pakunoda would shoot 6 times then avoid the six-legged flying beasts before firing again. Although she was a combatant, she has an extraordinary skill that wasn't inferior to professionally trained agents. That's why she can fight the six-legged flying beast even if she didn't have bullets for a while. In less than 5 minutes, the candidates killed more than 50 six-legged flying beasts. Most of the credits went to Hisoka, Illumi, Ryuudan, and Pakunoda, while Crollo was dodging them gracefully with his left hand in his pocket and his right hand holding a book. He didn't put those birds in his eyes. However, even after killing 50 six-legged flying beasts, more than half of them remained. On the other side, Hanzo was also having a fierce fight with the six-legged flying beast. Look at my shadow shuriken. Hanzo threw 2 shuriken, and after he made a few hand signs, the 2 shuriken turned into hundreds before striking down a six-legged flying beast. Note, Hanzo really did use Shadow Shuriken no Jutsu, made by Hiruzen Sarutobi from Naruto. Not far away, a blonde boy jumped fiercely toward the six-legged flying beast and directly struck a pair of daggers into its brain, killing it on the spot. Good job, Kurapika, Leorio exclaimed. Leorio, look behind you. Kurapika's words surprised Leorio, and as he looked back, a six-legged flying beast was already pouncing on him. Fortunately for Leorio, he dodged in the last second and avoided being hit by the six-legged flying beast's claws, but the beast still grabbed his suit and dragged him up. Looking down, Leorio saw how high he was and directly turned toward the six-legged flying beast that grabbed him and fiercely kicked it on its stomach. The six-legged flying beast let out a scream while letting go of Leorio, who fell on top of the tower and breathed heavily. He was a medical student and not someone specialized in combat. That kick was the strongest move he could make, and it was fueled by his desire to survive. Good job, Leorio! Kurapika praised. Leorio was speechless as he said the same thing to Kurapika half a minute ago. On the other side, Allan, Gon, and Killua had it relatively easy. Killua used his assassination technique to make his hand and nails sharper before slashing it toward the six-legged flying beast, directly decapitating it in a flash. His actions were swift and decisive, worthy of being an assassin from the Zaldik family. Chapter 58, Conqueror's Haki. Different from Killua's brutality, Gon clenched his fist and sent them flying with a punch. His fist shone with a pale golden light as he released tremendous power compared to his small body. Killua saw this and sighed, Gon, with that kind of power, you won't have any difficulty opening the testing gate. Testing gate? Gon asked in confusion. Killua waved his hand and said, well, I mean, you may be stronger than me. Gon touched the back of his head and smiled sheepishly, I didn't just use pure physical strength. Killua nodded as he figured that out already, yeah, I also feel that you didn't use brute strength to punch that bird, but another strange power. That power is strong. I've seen many uses it before, for example, my brother, Hisoka, and Gitaraker. Furthermore, Allan uses it too, and then you. I think all of you are using the same power, but each one is using it differently. Gon was stunned and didn't react for a few seconds before smiling, haha, Killua, I see that you still didn't learn Nen yet. Nen. Gon nodded and said, well, that strange power you felt is called Nen. I will tell you about it later after we finish those birds. Just when the two were about to go back fighting, an amazing force converged around them. They looked back at Allan, who is amazingly the source of that force. They felt uncertain and anxious, just standing there. It wasn't typical aura or killing intent, it was more impactful. All the beasts attacking them fell one after the other. The impact was enough to render them unable to fly, and some of them even lost consciousness. Killua walked toward the nearest beast and kicked its head. It's still breathing, but it fainted. Gon murmured, so great. Allan did this, right? Killua nodded and looked at Allan and asked, Allan, how did you do this? Allan glanced around and was surprised to see all the beasts on the ground. My Conqueror's haki seems stronger than before. Maybe because my physical stats increase, which increased its power. Allan murmured. What is haki? Killua asked curiously. It's a king of inexplicable power. It is what made those beasts lose consciousness. It's called Conqueror's haki. Allan explained. Conqueror's haki. Killua murmured deep in thoughts. He was born in a family of killers, so he can tell that haki wasn't killing intent. This power seems to directly target the spirit of the target, making them lose consciousness. The killing intent my father or grandfather releases can't do this. At most, they would make their targets fear death even more. But Allan's power caused the targets to lose consciousness, which was even more terrifying in a sense since the killing intent of his father and grandfather was at the top of the world. No, not only that, even I was affected just now. Only because my willpower was strong did I not faint. If it were an ordinary person, he would lose consciousness like those beasts. The more he thought about it, the more awestruck Killua felt by this power Allan used. Just now, it was an attack that can't differentiate between allies and foes, right? Killua asked suddenly. Allan just nodded, yeah, sorry, I'm still unable to control it precisely, so everything around me will be affected. But I know that this level of Conqueror's haki can't affect you much. This is just a skill I use to clean up trashy opponents. Allan believed that Gon and Killua would be affected by his haki if it reached the advanced level. After dealing with those beasts, the candidates started trying to find a way down the tower. People started disappearing from the roof, which made everyone realize that the floor had several trapdoors. And those trapdoors were their way to finish this part of the exam. Chapter 59, Ponzu. Soon, candidates disappeared one after the other into the tower, and the number of people on the roof was decreasing. Allan just stepped on a floor tile and felt that it was hollow. After tapping it a little, he heard an echo indicating that it was a trapdoor. Most trapdoors allowed a single candidate to enter, so others could only find another trapdoor. Although Allan knew that it was a trapdoor, he didn't know whether it was meant for a single person or a group. A single trapdoor allowed one person to enter, while the group trapdoor permitted a minimum of 2 and no known upper limit. However, it didn't matter because Allan already decided to go along anyway. After waving goodbye to Gon, he jumped into the trapdoor. In the next moment, he appeared inside a closed room with nothing but a timer. There were a monitor and a speaker as well in the upper left corner. Please put on the timer and start your challenge. If you reach the ground within 72 hours, you will pass the test. But there are various tests on the way, and whether you can get to the ground or not depends on your ability. A man's voice came out of the speaker. Allan already knew that this was the examiner of the third phase of the exam, who monitored all candidates. Allan didn't say anything and put on the timer and pressed the countdown button without hesitation. At this time, the closed door automatically opened. Allan walked out of the room and passed through a corridor. Suddenly, the corridor split into 2 passages, one left and one right, which led to nowhere. At this moment, Allan noticed a young girl with a delicate face, wearing a pink dress and pink hat stood in front of the 2 passages. It was candidate number 246, Ponzu. But Allan knew more than this, he knew that she was one of the unfortunate souls that would get eaten by the Chimera ant. At this time, Ponzu, who was still hesitating in front of the passage, noticed Allan behind her. "Ah, it's you!" she shouted and sounded slightly flustered. "Do you know me?" Allan was slightly surprised. It was the first time they met, so although they saw each other in the test before, they didn't even make eye contact. This meeting is considered their first. Ponzu avoided Allan's eyes as she turned around and said, I know all the candidates who reached this level." Allan nodded because it sounded right. He also liked to observe people. He could now recognize the people who didn't even appear in the show. And for the first time after a while, the system's voice echoed in Allan's head. Ding! The system detected that the host is making contact with a plot character. Please make a choice. 1. Ignore Ponzu completely and refuse any interaction with her. Reward, Great Sword X1. 2. Help Ponzu with the current difficulty and interact with her. Reward, Advanced Treasure Chest X1. 3. Show off in front of Ponzu, lead her to pass the exam's third phase, and add her to your harem. Reward, Diamond Treasure Chest X1. Note, please make your choice within 60 seconds. Hey! Allan almost yelled, but he suppressed himself. The sudden appearance of the system made him confused. He raised his head and glanced at Ponzu and thought, she has a good figure, and she is beautiful. If I can get her, it won't be a bad idea to choose the last option, and that option has the best reward out of the 3 choices as well. But at the same time, it's the most challenging option. Allan was confident in helping Ponzu pass the third phase of the exam, but he wasn't sure if Ponzu liked him or not to the point she accepts joining his harem. At this time, Ponzu noticed Allan's abnormality and asked, what wrong with you? Allan regained his senses as he shook his head, indicating that he was okay before asking, you're the examinee number 246, Ponzu, right? Yeah. Ponzu nodded in surprise, I didn't expect you to know my name. Well, you're cute, after all. It's not hard to notice you. Allan's words made Ponzu blush a little as she lowered her head and said, your name is Allan, right? Seeing Ponzu's reaction, Allan's eyes flashed. Since she knows my name, it means that she had a deep impression of me. And from her reaction just now, she doesn't hate me. Maybe there is a chance after all. Allan tried his best to look normal. His top priority is to lead her successfully out of the third phase of the exam. He will interact with her, and step by step, gain her favor. This way, making her join in his harem won't be hard. At this time, Ponzu asked, Allan, which way should we go? I can't decide. I want to hear your opinion. At first glance, the left corridor didn't seem dangerous, while the right one screamed danger. The walls seemed to spurt flames every once in a while, which blocked any passing attempt, and even a wrong step would be fatal. Most people would choose the left corridor because it seemed safe. Ponzu nodded her head, yes, it is true, but the safer the place seems, the more danger it contained. Allan glanced at her and said, then, you want to go to the right. Ponzu shook her head, that way is hazardous. Even if I want to, I can't make it. Allan looked at her in slight surprise. This girl was very aware and knew her skills. She didn't dare take the risk alone, but she wouldn't go on the left corridor, which seemed safe as well. Well, she's not wrong. Staying here was safer, but they would fail if they did so. The time limit is 72 hours. If they don't get to the ground, they won't pass this phase of the exam. The examiner deliberately prepared this place to make candidates waste their time here. It was using their sense of crisis against them. Therefore, the best option when encountering a choice like this is choosing as fast as possible. Allan, which way will you go? Ponzu asked. Most people would choose the left corridor, but I'm not them. I will choose the right one. But how will you avoid those flames? If it touches you, you will be finished. Ponzu said worriedly. She also preferred taking the right corridor. But that choice required incredible skills. Allan glanced at her and smiled, if you follow me, I can guarantee that you will be safe. Really? Ponzu was a little doubtful. Probably, Allan smiled without speaking. Ponzu hesitated before she nodded and said, well, I will follow you through the right corridor. Good, you made the right choice. After saying this, Allan gestured for Ponzu to step back and walk into the right corridor. Suddenly, a coldness flowed into the air out of Allan's body as he used his 1,000 kilometers ice field. The flamethrowers started freezing, and after a few seconds, not a single flamethrower could spew flame anymore. The entire corridor was covered in ice, without a single spot spared. Wow! That's amazing! Ponzu looked at this in awe. Allan smiled and said, let's go. You don't have to worry about the danger. Ponzu nodded. Allan's performance left a deep impression in Ponzu's heart. Chapter 60, Dead End. 20 minutes later, Allan took Ponzu smoothly through the right corridor. At the end of the corridor, the passage split into 3 forks. Sigh, here we go again. Allan felt that it wouldn't take 72 hours to go down the tower, but it seems reaching the end won't be easy. Allan, which corridor should we go through? Ponzu raised her head and asked. She felt dependent on Allan already. But suddenly she realized that she did something wrong and said quickly, "Sorry, you already helped me once, I shouldn't trouble you anymore, please don't worry about me." Unexpectedly, Ponzu was so thoughtful. Allan immensely admired this and directly waved his hand. "It's okay since we were destined to meet here. We'll continue together." Ponzu lowered her head and nodded, I will listen to you then." Allan looked at the three forks and said, "There should be a lot of folks in the tower. The danger we could encounter in each way is unpredictable. It would take a lot of time to choose the way. Maybe after passing the ones in front of us, we will encounter even more forks. So we need to choose the right way in the shortest time possible." After hearing Allan's explanation, Ponzu agreed with him. She thought for a while before saying, "Then, let me choose this time, I have a way." Allan nodded. He tried using observation haki to see the situation in each way, but he found nothing. After that, he tried using N, but as expected, he detected nothing. Allan knew that would happen anyway since his N wasn't strong enough and observation haki wasn't mature enough. His current limit with observation haki is about 22 meters, while N had a radius of 20 meters. It wasn't enough to perceive the corridor since it was at least 1 kilometer long. As for Ponzu's way to know the way, Allan already guessed. "Come out, my darlings." Ponzu raised her hand and touched her hat. Suddenly, dozens of bees flew out of her pink hat and gathered in her hand, acting like her servants. Those bees were slightly bigger than ordinary bees and looked quite fierce, but they were docile in Ponzu's hand. "You will use the bees to find the way?" Allan asked. He knew about Ponzu's ability from the show. Ponzu was surprised. Allan already guessed her plan as soon as he saw the bees. She looked at the bees dotingly and said, "Those bees are my babies, I have raised them for a long time, and I can give them any order, and they will obey it. Look at this." Ponzu pointed her hand toward the forks and said like a queen ordering her servants, "Go." The bees formed 3 groups, and each one flew toward a corridor. Allan's eyes were wide as he exclaimed, "They're obedient. It must have taken a lot of effort to raise them, right?" Ponzu seemed to think about the sad and happy days when she was training them and said, "Well, it's super difficult. It took a lot of hard work to train them, so under normal circumstances, I won't use them because I'm afraid of losing them." Hearing this, Allan apologized, "Sorry." Ponzu smiled, "Don't worry, you helped me a lot already. I should return the favor, right? Moreover, before reaching the ground, we are partners, so we should help each other." Allan nodded, but his thoughts were different. "This woman is so innocent, I will feel terrible if I deceive her feelings. Forget it, let's take one step at a time." Although he had chosen the third option, Allan's thoughts were simple, whether he complete it or not is his own choice in the end. Therefore, if Ponzu didn't want to be with him and join his harem, inexistent for the moment, he won't get punished by the system. He just won't receive the reward. Time passed by, and 20 minutes later, 4 bees flew back from the second corridor. "What is it?" Allan asked Ponzu. "It's powder," Ponzu replied. "Well, they brought back powder from a brick wall," Ponzu explained. "What does it mean?" Allan was confused. Ponzu thought for a bit and said, "I think there is a brick wall in the second corridor." "Is that so?" Allan nodded thoughtfully. "If that's the case, then the second corridor may be a dead end. By the way, it's been 30 minutes now. Why aren't the bees coming back yet?" "I don't know." Ponzu shook her head as she was worried herself. Upon seeing this, Allan didn't ask again. Ponzu trained those bees for a long time, and she was worried about them. After another 10 minutes, Ponzu became hopeless and said calmly, "The bees sent to the first and third corridors aren't returning. It seems something is wrong with those passages. Let's go to the second corridor." "What if they came back?" Allan asked in concern. Ponzu replied, "If they are still alive, as long as I'm not too far away, they will come and find me, don't worry." Allan nodded, "Then let's go." Allan and Ponzu walked toward the second corridor carefully. The second corridor maybe is safer than the other two, but it didn't mean it was completely safe. After 10 minutes, a tall brick wall appeared in front of them. "Ah, it's really a dead end. The power my darlings brought was from this wall." Ponzu sighed in disappointment. This meant that they made a trip in vain, and they needed to go back to choose the first or third fork. Allan looked at the brick wall with sharp eyes and said earnestly, I think 3 is a way to get past this wall. Really? Ponzu raised her head and looked at Allan in surprise. Allan pointed at the wall and said, "Look, the color of this wall is different. It means that it was newly made for the hunter exam. The purpose is to create a dead end for the candidates and consume even more time. So it's like that." Ponzu came to a realization. "But we don't have any tools with us. How are we going to go through it?" Hearing this, Allan smiled and said, "We will blow it up." "What?" Ponzu couldn't believe what she heard. At this time, Allan already took a step forward and raised his hand into a fist before sending a powerful punch toward the wall. Boom! The brick wall shattered entirely under Allan's punch. As the dust settled down, a quiet stairway appeared in front of Allan and Ponzu. The stair was leading down, but they didn't know where exactly. Allan didn't hesitate and said, "Let's go. This should lead us to the ground. We made the right choice." "Allan, you're amazing," Ponzu said in admiration. She really admired his power. 30 minutes later, Allan and Ponzu reached the ground smoothly. There were already 5 people who reached the ground faster than them. They were Hisoka, Illumi, Crollo, Pakunoda, and Yuvijan. Seeing Allan coming with Ponzu, the atmosphere changed. Hisoka, Illumi, and Crollo all turned around to look at Allan. Chapter 61, The Last Fight. "Tisk, those guys are fast." Allan glanced at Hisoka and Crollo before taking Ponzu and walked to the side. He is aware that there is some relationship between Hisoka, Illumi, and the Ryuudan, or Crollo, to be specific, especially since Hisoka should be the 4th member of the Ryuudan. And here in the hunter test, they pretended that they didn't know each other. Even now, while there is no one here, they weren't talking at all. But they were familiar with each other. There were 5 dangerous people here, and Allan needs a lot of effort to get out unscathed. "Ah, there are here," suddenly Ponzu said. Allan turned his head only to see Hisoka and Illumi walking toward him. "Don't worry," Allan said calmly. Although those 2 were dangerous, they knew each other from the second part of the exam, and they both owed him a favor. Allan was sure that they wouldn't do anything to him. However, Hisoka and Illumi weren't ordinary people and shouldn't be judged as such. So even if they attacked, it was expected, which is why Allan was on guard. When they arrived in front of him, Hisoka smiled, "Allan, you arrived very quickly. It seems like you have taken a shortcut." Hearing this, Allan said as if he was upset, "What? You and Illumi arrived faster." Initially, Allan thought that he was fast. It only took him 3 hours to get down here, but 5 people were faster than him. "I really don't know how those guys did it. Is there a faster way than going down the stairs?" Allan was curious, but he smelled blood. He frowned and looked at Hisoka and said, "You were injured." "Ah, you could tell?" Hisoka asked in surprise. Allan nodded and said, "You smell of blood, and it's not someone else's. It's your own. Your nose is excellent." Hisoka squinted smiled. "You're too close. Step away from me," Allan said in disgust. "Okay." Hisoka walked to the other side obediently and then sat down against a pillar. "By the way, how did you get hurt?" Allan asked curiously. With Hisoka's power, it's almost impossible for ordinary people to hurt him. And since he came here fast, it means something happened. Hisoka pondered for a bit before he said, "A madman hacked me." "Madman?" "It's not a madman. It's an examiner from the previous exam. He planned to take revenge on Hisoka and made a trap in the tower for him, but Hisoka killed him in the end," Illumi explained. Hearing this, Allan remembered that there was indeed such a thing in the original show. To injure Hisoka, that examiner indeed has some power, but he picked the wrong target. Because Hisoka sometimes doesn't care even if he is injured to achieve his purpose. Hisoka glanced at Ponzu beside Allan and asked in interest, "By the way, Allan, who is that girl next to you, where is gone?" "Yeah, what about Killua? Didn't the 2 of them follow you?" Illumi asked as he noticed Ponzu as well. Candidate number 44, Hisoka. Candidate number 301, Kitaraker. Ponzu recognized both of them and knew how dangerous they were. The danger she recognized wasn't how dangerous they seemed, but how much her instinct screamed danger when she looked at them. At this time, Ponzu got nervous when the 2 targeted her verbally and looked at Allan in distress. Allan already knew that Hisoka and Illumi would ask about Ponzu since Gon wasn't here and he was interested in Gon, while Illumi would ask because Killua wasn't here. After thinking for a while, Allan replied, "She's Ponzu. I met her in the tower. As for Gon and Killua, they should be in the tower." "In other words, you were alone, right?" Illumi asked. Allan said without denying it. "It turns out you are more than friends." Hisoka smiled. Allan was stunned before glaring at Hisoka. "Hey, don't speak nonsense," Illumi said, "taking a beautiful girl with you and leaving your friends behind. So, you're a dates before mates type." Hearing their words, Allan knew that they were half joking half ridiculing him. His tone became agitated as he said, "You two, are you trying to provoke me to fight here?" Seeing the cold air radiating from Allan, Hisoka knew that they went too far and said, "Although I want to fight you, Allan, but I'm injured, and I will lose if we fight now. Let's fight another time." Allan looked at Illumi and said, "What about you?" Illumi said, "I'm a professional assassin, I collect my money before killing, I don't engage in meaningless fights." Allan said, "Very well then, shut up and don't bother me. As for Gon and Killua, they're strong. They will come down for sure. Just wait for them." Hearing this, Hisoka and Illumi said nothing and moved away. However, as he dealt with one wave, another one started. As soon as Hisoka and Illumi went away, another guy jumped in front of him. Of course, it was Ryuudan, who else would bother Allan except for him. He is number 11 in the Ryuudan, and other than fighting, he has no further interest. Ryuudan directly looked at Allan and said, "If they don't want to fight you, I will." He was referring to Hisoka and Illumi when he said they. Suddenly, the system's choice appeared in front of Allan. 1. Defeat or kill Ryuudan. Reward, Armament Haki, Intermediate, or Zoan Devil Fruit, Cat Fruit, Model, Leopard. 2. Ignore Ryuudan's provocation, and don't fight him. Reward, Advanced Treasure Chest X1. It seems that a battle is inevitable after all. Therefore, Allan made his choice, the first option it is. If Allan can't do it, he won't get any reward, but if he defeats Ryuudan or kills him, he would get Armament Haki or Cat Fruit, Model, Leopard, which will significantly increase his power. After making his decision, Allan raised his head and said, "I will fight with you, but I have a condition." Ryuudan frowned and said, "What condition?" 1. This battle is between the two of us. No one can intervene. 2. This is the last battle between the two of us. Whether we live or die, we won't fight again. No matter who wins or loses, or who lives or dies, no one is allowed to seek revenge later. What do you say?" "No problem." Ryuudan directly agreed and said with a grin, "This time, I will kill you here." The killing intent in his eyes was no joke. "I will say the same to you," Allan said using Conqueror's Haki. The declaration of a life and death battle caught everyone's attention. Hisoka didn't care about anything as he said, "There is a good show about to begin." Illumi said, "They're really energetic." Crollo looked at this silently, while Pakunoda couldn't help asking, "Chief, shouldn't we stop Ryuudan?" Crollo glanced at her and asked, "Why should we stop him? Do you think he will lose?" "I don't know." Pakunoda shook her head and said, "Ryuudan fought that Allan twice, and he didn't gain any advantage. This is their last fight, so they won't hold anything back, so it's impossible to predict the outcome." Crollo tapped his finger lightly, and his eyes flashed, "Then I will be on Ryuudan and win." Chapter 62, Ice Fist and Throwing Machine. The ground floor of the Trick Tower was just an empty hall. The atmosphere in this same hall was taut. Allan and Ryuudan stood in the center in front of each other as their aura rose. The power of an Nen user is determined by the amount of Nen they possess. Ryuudan, as the number 1 fighting maniac in the Ryuudan, had a powerful Nen. Although Allan's aura wasn't as strong as Ryuudan, his aura contained an icy cold touch. Suddenly, the air around him turned colder and colder as it moved toward Ryuudan like a blizzard. After fighting with Allan twice, Ryuudan understood that Allan could freeze anything. Ryuudan snorted as he punched the blizzard straight away. The punch was powerful enough to stop the air from moving forward, making small ice cubes dance in the air. At this moment, Ryuudan's pupil shrank as Allan rushed at him. Too fast. Ryuudan was shocked. He couldn't react in time as he received Allan's uppercut. But as a first-class enhancer, Ryuudan used his physical strength to withstand the attack and retaliated with a punch. Allan was already using his observation haki, and as soon as Ryuudan punched, he was already 8 steps away from him. Ryuudan didn't chase after Allan, who stepped back, but he spat a mouthful of blood as he felt half of his face paralyzed. A punch can hurt me? Is he that powerful? Ryuudan was suspicious. He didn't think that the other party was that strong, so he looked at his hand, and sure enough, ice covered his fists. He immediately understood that Allan gloved his hands with ice to increase his power. That's indeed what Allan was doing, as he already figured out that typical attacks did not affect Ryuudan. Therefore, he covered his hands with ice, forming a glove of ice. It can protect his hand and improve his attack. Ryuudan didn't get angry. Instead, he grinned ferociously at Allan. His only enjoyment in life was fighting, and the stronger his opponent, the more excited he would get. Boom! His body was suddenly covered by aura as he rushed toward Allan like a bull while raising his fist. Blue veins bulged out of his arm, highlighting the amazing power that single punch contained. Flash steps. Allan's figure disappeared from Ryuudan's view as his fist hammered the ground, leaving a massive crater behind. At the same time, this attack left his back fully open, which made Ryuudan feel bad. He hurriedly turned around only to see Allan's attack already reaching him. Leaf Strong Whirlwind. Konoha Goriki Senpyu. Allan's kick landed on Ryuudan, sending him sliding like a cannonball to a pillar. The huge pillar was smashed apart due to the power behind Allan's kick. Who dot? Allan's let out a deep breath. From start to finish, it all took 2 seconds. While using observation haki to avoid Ryuudan's attacks, he used Shunpo to get behind him and poured out every ounce of his physical strength to use Might Guy's Leaf Strong Whirlwind, Konoha Goriki Senpyu. Even if Ryuudan's body was as strong as steel, he wouldn't be able to get out unscathed from this attack. This was proved right away. Ryuudan was tattered as his aura decreased slightly. Of course, it is impossible to defeat this guy relying on Leaf Strong Whirlwind alone. Allan knew that well. Ryuudan roared as he got up while pushing the pile of stones from the destroyed pillar with a hideous expression. That kick can be compared to a heavy truck hitting him at a speed of 100 km per hour. Fortunately, his defense was strong enough to block most of the impact. If someone else took that hit, he would have died without any second chance. He stared at Allan as he understood something. Allan was much stronger than the previous 2 times. This guy has a very keen perception. He can instantly predict my attacks, coupled with that teleporting thing and his powerful kick that doesn't lose in power compared to my fist. He had an overwhelming combination of skills. Ryuudan thought. Ryuudan no longer rushed forward crazily. Although he never liked to use his brain, it's different in a fight as he can be very flexible with his strategy. Allan's power exceeded his expectation by leaps and bounds. Therefore, Ryuudan decided to change his strategy. He picked up a few stones from the ground and launched them at Allan. Allan instantly guessed that Ryuudan was using Shu to strengthen the stone, and immediately thought flashed in his mind. Don't block this. Allan decisively flash-stepped away from the projectiles. Boom! As the stones hit the tower's wall, they pierced it without stopping, leaving behind a fist-sized hole while the stones kept flying far away. Ha ha ha, again! Ryuudan laughed as Allan didn't dare block his attack. He immediately picked a few egg-sized stones from the ground and started throwing them with 2 hands while wrapping them in nen. They were launched like rockets toward Allan. As Allan was a master in enhancement, he didn't dare block the stones, so with observation haki in full use, he started teleporting around, leaving behind countless after images. Note, teleporting is just a term, he is using Shunpo, flash steps, to move around at an extremely high speed that, to everyone else, it may seem like he was teleporting. The wall behind Allan became like a hornet nest due to the sheer amount of stones that pierced it, while Ryuudan seemed to transform into a baseball thrower. Allan knew that he couldn't keep this up, as space around them was limited. Over time, Ryuudan would be able to follow his movement and send a well-aimed attack at him. At that time, Allan wouldn't be able to react even with flash steps. Also, the continuous use of flash steps consumes too much stamina. Therefore, Allan was continually looking for an opportunity to approach Ryuudan. To stop Ryuudan's long-ranged attacks, the most effective way is to get close to him. But Ryuudan had a rich fighting experience, so he would keep his distance every time he threw the stones at Allan. The power behind the stones he threw depended on the distance between them. If the distance shrunk, the rocks would lose a great deal of power. The power required to throw the stones at such a high speed and power was quite enormous. Ryuudan wouldn't be able to keep up for long even if he had a monstrous physical strength. This is why Ryuudan was preserving his power. He was using his full strength but still managed to turn into an automatic turret with a high firing rate. Chapter 63, Advantages. In just 2 minutes, Ryuudan already launched hundreds of small stones with amazing strength, enough to penetrate an armored vehicle. The wall behind Allan is in ruins already. Ryuudan's expression was already hideous. He was so concentrated on throwing stones at Allan that he ignored his surroundings. And now, he was standing in his place stunned as he didn't find any stone to throw. The broken pillars' rocks were all thrown at Allan already, leaving him with nothing to throw. Ah, there are no more stones, he said dumbfoundedly. Allan already predicted this in advance. He was paying attention to the stones on the ground in addition to the ones Ryuudan threw at him. He decisively seized this opportunity to step forward and attack Ryuudan with a leaf-strong whirlwind. Ryuudan, who didn't react, was kicked on the chest and flew away like a cannonball again. He was smashed into a wall leaving a human-sized crack on the wall. Damn, that kick hurts. Ryuudan rubbed his rising and falling chest with difficulty as he felt pain all over his body. This is my chance. Allan took advantage of the fallen Ryuudan and directly rushed toward him while covering his fist with ice. He started punched Ryuudan continuously as the wall behind him cracked even further. Boom! 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 In a few seconds, Ryuudan was punched dozens of times, and even with his defense, he was in pain. Instantly, his expression turned ferocious as he roared. Damn you! His punches weren't too strong, but the coldness that seeped out of them into my body made mine slow down and prevented me from fighting back. Ryuudan gritted his teeth as he thought. Allan was punching with everything he got, with a single purpose in mind, which is killing Ryuudan. It wasn't just pure power, as his killing intent mixed with every blow. If he doesn't defeat or kill Ryuudan, he would be dead. Allan knew this very well. So he didn't show any mercy and used all of his power like mad. Allan's fist continued raining on top of Ryuudan's body without stopping. Ryuudan had a rusty taste in his mouth as he spurted a mouthful of blood. The blood aroused Ryuudan's primitive survival instinct, turning him into a beast. His aura erupted from his body in waves and surged around him, making Allan step away instantly and raise his guard. Ryuudan moved. He shot at Allan at lightning speed. So fast. Allan was shocked and had no time to escape, but his reaction was slow. He put his arms in front of him for the first time as he used Ken to block the punch. Allan flew back and slammed into a stone pillar, breaking it apart. Allan stood up and spurted a mouthful of blood. His eyes looked at Ryuudan gravely. This guy is a monster. He took so many of my punches, but he still can strike back with such force. He indeed deserves his title as the #1 fighting maniac of the Ryuudan. Allan thought. I'm just returning the favor. Ryuudan grinned as he jumped and slammed his fist at Allan, who didn't dare to block it again. He hurriedly rolled to the side as he wanted to recover some strength. Ryuudan already expected Allan to dodge, so he immediately chased behind him, only for Allan to use flash steps to get away. Ryuudan's expression changed. He depended on his instinct and instantly turned around and punching at Allan, who appeared behind him. Allan once again kicked Ryuudan using leaf-strong whirlwind, Konoha Goriki Senpyu. Boom! One punch and one kick collided as the gust of wind howled on the trick tower's ground floor. At the same time, Ryuudan and Allan moved back. Allan frowned, damn it! I consumed a lot of power, and my physical strength hasn't recovered yet. I can use leaf-strong whirlwind, Konoha Goriki Senpyu, at full power. The same can be said for Ryuudan. The battle consumed a lot of his power. However, as an enhancer, he is faster and more resilient than a transmutter like Allan. This is his advantage. Therefore, after 10 seconds, Ryuudan once again launched an attack at Allan without giving the slightest opportunity to recover his strength. Allan recovered a little, but it was far from enough to fight Ryuudan, so instead of fighting, he used his advantage, observation haki, to dodge Ryuudan's attacks while recovering. He didn't want to use flash steps as it cost too much stamina. If he used it repeatedly, his energy would deplete in 20 minutes, so he tried to avoid using it. Ryuudan couldn't touch Allan at all. Allan avoided 7 or 8 punches, making Ryuudan angry. A punch, that's all I need. As long as I land a hit, I win. Yuvajin stared at Allan. He knew that the latter wasn't as good as him physically or in quantity. If the two of them used Ken to defend, Yuvajin's defense would be 100, and Allan's would be 90. The difference of 10 points isn't the difference of their Ken, but instead the difference between their Nen. Although the gap isn't that huge, it was still a considerable gap. That's why Allan could barely defend using Ken. An injury would reduce the overall power, speed, and reaction time of someone, and if Allan received another blow now, it would definitively be the end of the battle. It's a pity for Yuvajin. Allan has observation haki, which made it almost impossible for Yuvajin to land a hit. Allan dodged left and right while concentrating his aura. Suddenly, a large thick ice wall condensed in front of him. It was 2 meters high and a 1-foot thick wall that appeared instantly. Yuvajin didn't care and directly punched the wall without a second thought, breaking it. The wall could hardly stop him for even a second as it broke like glass. Although Allan's defense wasn't as good as Yuvajin, he can make it useful if he makes fair use of his Nen. Right now, he stopped Yuvajin's attack with the ice wall. Even though he broke it, he couldn't hit Allan. Compared to using Ken to defend, using it to create an ice wall consumes less Nen and was more useful as it can block Yuvajin's attack. There is nothing but anger in Yuvajin's eyes as he looked at Allan. The only thought in his head was kill Allan. As he continued his attack, his speed was significantly decreasing, and his power behind each punch was weaker. Allan noticed his killing intent soared, his stamina is almost out, and it's time to fight back. Flash steps. Suddenly, Allan disappeared, and Yuvajin felt danger and turned around as fast as he could, but too slow. A cold voice echoed behind him, and in the next moment, a kick landed on Yuvajin's neck. Chapter 64, Ice Slash. The neck is one of the most vulnerable parts of a human's body. Once it is injured, the rest of the body would be slightly paralyzed or cause death. Crack. A crisp bone-cracking sound echoed. Even if Yuvajin's body was like steel, his neck cracked after Allan landed a leaf-strong whirlwind on it. My neck. Yuvajin's head was covered in cold sweat as Allan's kick almost torn his head off his body. This is bad. Although cracking his neck didn't do too much damage, he was still affected. He couldn't make large movements anymore as the severe pain from torn muscles and shattered bones in his neck was unbearable. Right now, Yuvajin could only grit his teeth and try to move his neck back into its original position. If he moved it too fast, he wouldn't be able to reposition it back smoothly, but the pain would be severe if he moved too slow. However, as he tried to move his damaged neck back into position, Allan flashed in front of him. Leaf Whirlwind, Konoha Senpyu. Although this attack was slightly weaker than Leaf Strong Whirlwind, no one can underestimate it. Yuvajin hurriedly raised his arms to block the attack, but this kick was just a feint. There! Allan sneered. As soon as Leaf Whirlwind was blocked, he turned around and punched. Yuvajin was unable to guard against this attack, and instantly coldness spread over his body. Yuvajin was stunned by Allan's attacks. He couldn't predict any pattern in his attack from start to finish. No, if he freezes me, it's over. This thought crept into Yuvajin's head as he instantly controlled his Nen to fight the coldness. Roar! Yuvajin's Nen once again burst out, dispelling the coldness. Allan jumped up in the air with moonwalk. Then he sharply looked at Yuvajin. He spread his hands, and the cold aura erupted around him, forming an icicle. Allan held the icicle, then launched it toward Yuvajin. As soon as Yuvajin raised his head, pain assaulted him from his neck. But he didn't care about the pain at this moment. He poured Nen into his fist and faced Allan's icicle head-on. With a loud bang, Yuvajin's punch crashed the icicle. Simultaneously, Allan used moonwalk to crush down toward Yuvajin with a kick to the head. With Yuvajin's current injury, he can't receive any blow to the head, or else he is done for. Therefore, Allan aimed his attacks at Yuvajin's sore spot, his neck. Yuvajin gritted his teeth and roared. He could only endure the pain as he once again punched. Boom! The ground under Yuvajin cracked, but Allan didn't finish his attack yet. Without giving any chance to Yuvajin, he rolled around and covered his hands with ice gloves and punched. Logan didn't dare to be careless. He instantly punched out again. His neck's injury was getting severe with each movement he made. He changed from a fierce beast to an injured animal. And even though Allan was tattered as well, he didn't receive much damage. He was in good shape compared to Yuvajin. Damn it! What a joke! I'm the strongest! Yuvajin roared angrily as his aura soared. He concentrated all of his remaining nen into his fist before slamming it down. Big bang impact! In an instant, Yuvajin's hand turned red as he hit the ground. Yuvajin's fist created a giant crater on the ground with a loud bang as the tower's floor tiles scattered with the impact. The entire tower shook slightly as if an earthquake or a missile just hit it. This was Yuvajin's strongest attack. He aimed to make it as strong as a nuclear warhead, but he still didn't reach that power yet. He wanted to have the power to level a city with one punch. But even though he wasn't that strong yet, his punch was as powerful as a small missile. The trick tower was built specially to hold prisoners, so even with Yuvajin's attack, it wasn't destroyed and only shook slightly. The ground floor was destroyed, though. In the center of the crater, Yuvajin stood straight. Who dot? After using Big Bang Impact, Yuvajin's nen was depleted, and his breathing was ragged. That guy, where did he go? Yuvajin didn't relax as he remained vigilant while looking around for Allan. He knew that his punch didn't affect Allan. At this moment, he felt a crisis approaching him and directly looked up, ignoring the severe pain from his neck. He noticed a huge icicle rapidly descending on him. This is bad. Yuvajin's nen was depleted and couldn't muster enough power to punch the icicle away. He could only block it with his body. He was blasted down and smashed into the crater he created before the icicle broke apart. Yuvajin vomited a mouthful of blood. His injury was severe. Allan flash stepped in front of him. Thanks to Moonwalk, Allan was able to stay away from Yuvajin's Big Bang Impact. He used that opportunity to prepare a giant icicle to finish Yuvajin off. All this happened so quickly that which caught Yuvajin off guard. Allan was no longer afraid as he is confident that he can kill Yuvajin. Shit! Seeing Allan's haughty expression, Yuvajin shouted unhappily as he resisted the pain in his body and punched Allan. Humph! Allan snorted and avoided the punch with the observation hackey's help. Simultaneously, he lifted his leg and punched Yuvajin's chest. Yuvajin flew upside down while Allan moved quickly with a kick. Leaf whirlwind! Allan kicked Yuvajin's stomach, sending him sliding on the ground before he hit a pillar far away. Allan continued his attack as he approached with flash steps before kicking again. After 5 or 6 kicks, Yuvajin was almost losing consciousness. Blood spurted out of his mouth after each kick as his body was dyed red with blood. He was angry, his pupils were bloodshot, and a growl escaped his throat. Allan didn't give him a chance to get back up as he made an icicle in his hand and shouted. Die! Ice slash! Allan slashed Yuvajin with the icicle intending on killing him. Krollo, Hisoka, and Illumi, who already moved away as soon as Yuvajin used his Big Bang Impact, stared with wide eyes at the scene in front of them. Krollo resisted the urge to rescue Yuvajin as he only stared at Allan slashing his partner. Yuvajin's ken shattered, and the slash hit his bare flesh without any resistance. Blood spattered as a 30-centimeter wound appeared on Yuvajin's body. If Yuvajin's body wasn't so tough, that slash could have chopped him in half. Yuvajin's pupils were wide open. His face looked at the wound on his body in disbelief before intense pain spread all over. A violent roar escaped Yuvajin's hoarse throat like a demon. His gaze was filled with anger, hatred, and killing intent. Suddenly his eyes were fixed on Allan as he clenched his teeth, and veins bulged out of his body rapidly. Oh! His aura erupted once again as he roared. Chapter 65, Full Power to the End. Yuvajin's hair was fluttering in the wind, and the bloodstain on his chest made him look like a monster. His eyes were red with madness. Killing intent and anger burst out of his body in waves. The only thing that mattered was defeating the person in front of him. This guy. Allan frowned with a gloomy face. The enhancers were special, their powers can increase due to their emotions. Initially, as Yuvajin consumed so much of his nen, he shouldn't have this much left. But because of his anger, his body generated nen like crazy, in a few moments, he returned to his peak. But with his current injuries, the pain Yuvajin was experiencing would render a grown man to a crying mess, but Yuvajin didn't care at all. Allan was impressed by Yuvajin's aura. He was standing 10 meters away, but he still felt the aura like hot flames burning. What is this? Suddenly, Allan's face changed. He looked at the wound on Yuvajin's body, and to his surprise, it was healing at speed visible to the naked eye. Enhancers were among the few nen types that can increase the healing rate using their aura. Damn it! Allan said darkly. If Ryuudan recovered, everything he did from start to now would go down the drain. Allan was preparing to launch a surprise attack. Ryuudan gave up healing his wound and jumped up to intercept Allan and punched him. Flash steps. Allan directly avoided using flash steps. Ryuudan's punched empty air, but it sent a massive shockwave that damaged the ground like a hammer. Allan was surprised by the power that casual punch had. If Allan gets hit by that punch, his bones will crack. Die! Ryuudan was still in a frenzy. His fist started ramming down like a machine gun. After a while, the dust created by Ryuudan's punches was lifted, and dozens of pits appeared on the ground with varying sizes. The smallest pit was 3 meters wide, while the largest was 10 meters. However, Ryuudan wasn't happy. He was panting heavily as his eyes looked around. Suddenly, he caught on the figure approaching him quickly. With air superiority, Allan escaped the last outburst unscathed. Allan was holding a crystal icicle with both hands as he used flash steps to increase his momentum. Although Ryuudan consumed a lot of energy in his frenzied attack, his reaction wasn't affected as he avoided Allan's attack by stepping to the side. The icicle passed dangerously close to Ryuudan's body. At the same time, he punched him with the back of his hand. Allan used the icicle to block the punch, but it broke. Ryuudan's punch rushed toward Allan without decreasing in speed. Allan instantly kicked with his legs and jumped to the air to distance himself from Ryuudan. Boom! Ryuudan picked up 2 rocks from the ground and threw them at Allan, who was in the air, but the latter dodged while looking for an opportunity to approach Ryuudan. He was saving his energy for a heavy blow. His gaze locked on Ryuudan's head and neck. That was the only way he could injure him. Damn it! My neck hurts more and more, and if I leave it alone, I won't be able to perform large movements. I must move my neck back to its original position, otherwise, I will be restricted. Allan saw Ryuudan stop throwing rocks and twisted his neck. Taking advantage of this moment, Allan launched his attack directly. Leaf-strong whirlwind. Allan kicked while falling from the sky, and Ryuudan had no choice but to use a single hand to block this attack. However, he underestimated this kick as he almost fell to his knees. Allan turned around and kicked again. Ryuudan couldn't defend himself, and his face was kicked. His neck injury aggravated as intense pain spread all over his body like an electric current. Ryuudan's concentration broke as sweat beads covered his forehead. Allan knew that this was a rare opportunity and immediately poured what little power he still had and used Konoha's taijutsu techniques to attack Ryuudan repeatedly. At this moment, Ryuudan grabbed Allan's wrist and took a deep breath. Allan felt immense danger arise from his heart. He knew what Ryuudan was about to shout. He knew this attack from the show, but he isn't clear how loud Ryuudan's roar could be. If he was unprepared, his eardrums would burst out, and he would die. Damn, I can't avoid this. Allan's brain was trying its best to find a way to cope with Ryuudan's roar. Ryuudan roared. Almost everyone in the tower could hear this roar, and it made nearly all of them tremble. Gon, Killua, Kurapika, Leorio and many other candidates in the tower and the prisoners all paled after hearing this roar. When Ryuudan was about to shout, Allan instantly used Conqueror's Haki without restraint and used it to protect himself. He used Conqueror's Haki to diverse the sonic impact while also impacting Ryuudan's consciousness. Note, I have no idea if that's possible, but that's what the author wrote. Allan felt uncomfortable. Although he used his Conqueror's Haki to withstand the sonic boom in time, the distance was too close, and his eardrums were affected, and his head was buzzing. For the time being, both sides stared at each other without doing anything. You are getting better and better as time passes, Ryuudan said. After such a fierce, Allan's power exceeded his imagination. Although they were enemies, Ryuudan felt amazed by Allan's progress. Allan said, so. I'm very excited. Let's continue. Ryuudan said with a grim expression. Ryuudan already put back his neck to its position, and although he still felt pain, it wasn't that intense anymore, and his movement greatly improved. Allan didn't show any weakness, although he used most of his stamina. When the two were still fighting, someone wearing glasses and had a rooster's haircut intervened. Stop! Go away! Ryuudan angrily shouted. Allan frowned and looked at the other party, quickly recognizing him as the examiner of this phase of the exam. Are you the examiner? Sure enough, the rooster head replied. Yes, I'm Lippo. I'm warning you too. If you don't stop, I will eliminate you from the hunter's exam. Allan frowned. Ryuudan didn't care if they eliminated him. His eyes were on Allan, wanting to defeat him. Lippo glanced at the two of them and said, "This is the hunter exam, not somewhere you two could fight. If you have grudges, you can settle them after you leave. Moreover, you two already rendered the tower into such a sorry state, if you two continue, you will destroy the tower." Allan said coldly, "That big guy is to blame. He inflicted 80% of the damage. It has nothing to do with me. He attacked and forced me to defend myself." "What are you talking about?" Ryuudan glared at Allan. He didn't expect Allan to be so shameless. Although he did cause most of the damage, it was because Allan dodged his attacks. Allan looked at him provocatively. He wouldn't give in to someone as rude as Ryuudan, or else the latter would think he was afraid of him. Chapter 66, Intervention. Seeing a fight about to break out again, Lippo hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Don't try anything. This is the territory of the Hunter Association." Ryuudan was already grumpy and cursed, "Who cares about your crap association? Can you stop us? Get out of here, or I will kill you as well." "He's right, Examiner-san. Please get out of the way," Allan said indifferently. Lippo fixed his glasses and looked at Allan and Ryuudan, "Both of you are indeed powerful nin-users, and I can't stop you alone. However, if you continue to fight here, I will ask the association to take the corresponding measure to deal with both of you, and it won't be a simple elimination from the exam. No matter how good you are, you won't be able to face the Hunter Association." "Damn, are you threatening me?" Ryuudan growled. He never liked threats, and he wasn't afraid of anyone. Even though the Hunters Association held the largest authority in the world, he wasn't afraid. Not just because he was a member of the Genei Ryuudan, but because he was Ryuudan from Meteor City. Lippo pushed his glasses facing the arrogant Ryuudan and said, "It's not a threat, but a warning. Of course, if you have someone behind you and think he is strong enough, you can bring him along as well. The Hunter Association isn't afraid of anyone." Ryuudan gritted his teeth. He was one of the Genei Ryuudan, and he was proud of it. He was outraged as the meaning behind Lippo's words was simple: the Hunters Association was not afraid of anyone, which meant the Hunters Association is the strongest. Although the Genei Ryuudan were a bunch of thieves in the eyes of many, he believed it was the strongest. No one could stand in front of it, even if it were the Hunters Association. Just as Ryuudan was about to punch Lippo, Allan suddenly said, "I see, let's stop then." Ryuudan was taken aback and shouted, "Hey, what are you talking about?" Allan glanced at him and said, "I won't fight anymore." "What did you say?" "I said, I won't fight you anymore." Ryuudan angrily yelled, "Are you kidding me? I won't give up today, whether I win or lose." "Stop it, idiot. We are here to participate in the Hunter's exam and get the Hunter's license. Now we have reached the third phase of the exam and about to go to the fourth. The Hunter's exam has 5 or 6 phases, and it will be stupid to give up now, right? So, I decided to stop. You just do the same thing." Ryuudan looked at him in disdain and said, "I don't need the Hunter's license." After that, he looked at Lippo and said, "Just wait, I will deal with this examiner here, and then I will kill you. You can wait and see, I won't give up until we decide a winner. This lunatic wants to kill me." Lippo looked at Ryuudan with vigilance. He didn't expect someone to dare make a move on the Hunters Association. Allan snorted, stepped aside, and said, "It's your business if you want to kill the examiner, but I won't fight you nonetheless. I still need to get the Hunter's license, which is more important than killing you." Allan was looking forward to Ryuudan attacking Lippo, and with that, the association will eliminate him. In that way, he won't bother Allan anymore. Although Ryuudan was currently not in his peak condition, he was still confident in dealing with the examiner. However, before he had the chance to kill Lippo, a voice echoed behind him. "Ryuudan, stop!" Ryuudan was stunned as he stopped. That voice was Krollo's. When Krollo watched the fight between Ryuudan and Allan, he had no choice because it was a duel. But since Ryuudan wanted to kill the examiner, he can interfere. And in this way, he can also prevent Ryuudan from fighting Allan for a while as well. Ryuudan looked at Krollo and asked, "Chief, why are you stopping me?" Krollo didn't explain much and only said, "Isn't it enough? If you continue to fight, we won't benefit anything." "But Captain, I still have to settle this score with that guy, Ryuudan said unhappily. No, the winner has already been decided, Krollo said calmly. What? Ryuudan was stunned, and Allan looked at Krollo in confusion. He and Ryuudan fought for 40 minutes, but neither of them lost. How did Krollo/Chief come to the conclusion that someone had won? Both Allan and Ryuudan thought. Chief, what do you mean? Ryuudan asked with a frown. Krollo said, you have not been able to win after fighting for more than 30 minutes. If this was a tournament, it would have already ended in a tie. That's why we need to fight again to find who is stronger. Ryuudan clenched his fists and said. Whether it will take an hour or two, a day or two, he didn't care as long as an outcome is decided. Krollo sighed helplessly, anyway, just listen to me this time. Ryuudan's face was gloomy. After a while, he finally decided to compromise and obeyed Krollo's order. Lippo breathed a sigh of relief. He witnessed the fight between Allan and Ryuudan and was afraid of Ryuudan's power. As for Allan, he looked at Krollo coldly. If he didn't interfere, Ryuudan would have been eliminated. It's a pity. Allan was less relieved now that Ryuudan wasn't eliminated. After the previous fight, he understood that it wouldn't be easy to kill Ryuudan. Even with the power he received from the system and his own nin, they were evenly matched. Forget it. I will wait after getting the hunter's license. Allan thought as he leaned on the wall. At this time, Ryuudan made his way to Allan, startling him, but as he noticed that Ryuudan didn't have any intention to fight, he asked, what are you doing? Do you still want to fight? Ryuudan groaned, this battle isn't finished. We were stopped before deciding a winner, so let's continue another time. Allan looked at him and said, fight till the end. These simple words made Ryuudan's fighting spirit ignite again, but he held back as he looked forward to the next duel with Allan. Next time, it will be the last fight between them. There are still 67 hours left before the third phase comes to an end. In other words, they will have to stay here for at least 2 days and a half before they can go to the next phase location. For now, only 7 candidates passed this phase of the exam. They are Hisoka, Illumi, Allan, Ponzu, Pakunoda, Ryuudan, and Krollo. Because the fight destroyed the ground floor, they were asked to leave the trick tower and wait outside until the next phase. Are you all right, Allan? Ponzu walked over toward Allan with a worried expression. Although she didn't witness the fight, she saw how much destruction it caused and could imagine how fierce it must have been. Allan waved his hand, gesturing that he was all right. Are you really okay? This voice made Allan startled as he looked behind only to see Hisoka and Illumi walking side by side toward him. Ponzu couldn't help take a step back, as her sixth sense already marked those two as dangerous, but she was anxious about Allan because Illumi and Hisoka's eyes were fixed on Allan. Chapter 67, Krollo's Invitation. Allan frowned and said, what are you doing here? Hisoka's eyes narrowed as he said, I just came here to see you, nothing else. Illumi said, awesome. You're really strong. Allan didn't want to pay too much attention to these two, and after a few words, he took Ponzu to the forest to hunt some food. After the fierce battle with Ryuudan, he was really exhausted and needed to replenish his energy urgently. The fastest way to do so is to eat meat. And probably because this was the association's territory, the forest was rich with wildlife. Of course, while hunting, Allan didn't forget to keep an eye on his surroundings. After all, he couldn't guarantee that no one will take advantage of his current weakness and deal with him. Fortunately, no one attacked him. After a fulfilling meal, he transformed all of the meat he ate into nin to quickly regain his strength. At this moment, Ponzu said, someone is coming over here. She released her bees to scout the surroundings and notice anyone approaching them. The bees she released are named sentry bees, a special breed used for guarding. Allan was puzzled right now. If she had some bees like this, why didn't she release them in the show when she worked in the NGL expedition team? But it wasn't time to think about this now, since she noticed someone approaching. He took a look to see who it was. Allan was stunned. The one who came was Krollo. He immediately became vigilant. He is very familiar with the show and knew that Krollo could steal nin ability, but he didn't know the conditions. He needed to be careful. Compared to Ryuudan, who is simple-minded, Krollo was very difficult to deal with. But, once he noticed that Krollo came alone, he felt relieved. Neither Pakunodan nor Ryuudan accompanied him, which means, Krollo wasn't here to cause trouble. After making Ponza retreat temporarily, Allan asked, "Okay, can you tell me what do you want? Then, I will directly say it. You know who we are, right?" Allan didn't answer directly. He didn't expect Crollo to ask this, but he nodded in the end, "That's right." Sure enough. Crollo wasn't surprised when he heard this. Allan was abnormal when he saw Crollo on the ship, which made Crollo suspect that he knew their identities. "Have you seen us before?" "No." "How did you recognize us?" "Secret." "Well, besides confirming my guess, I have something else to ask you." "What is it?" Allan already guessed what Crollo wanted, but he still asked. Crollo thought for a bit before he said, "You're strong. I want to invite you to join us." As Allan expected, Crollo wanted to recruit him. "It's an honor that the leader of the Genii Ryuudan is personally inviting me." Allan didn't say anything for a while before he asked, "What if I refuse?" Crollo was taken aback for a moment before he smiled, "It's okay, you have the right to choose. I won't force such a thing. Moreover, I know that you can't merely agree to join us. After all, for those who know about the Genii Ryuudan, it isn't the right place to go." Allan frowned and asked back, "If that's the case, why would you invite me?" "Because we are short of people," Crollo replied without revealing much. Allan doubted that, but Crollo's mouth rose slightly. "This time, we're here to take the hunter exam to take the license as well as observe if there are any suitable candidates to invite to join us, and you are one of them." "Okay then, it's an honor, but let me refuse. I don't want to join the Genii Ryuudan." Crollo already knew that Allan would refuse, but he still smiled, "Okay, but if you change your mind, you can contact me anytime." After saying this, Crollo took out his card from his coat, handed it to Allan, and said, "That card has my contact information. You are welcome to call me anytime." After saying this, Crollo turned around and left, while Allan picked up the card and before coldly saying, "Tisk, what good would I gain from joining the Genii Ryuudan? I don't want to become a criminal." However, a choice appeared in front of him. Ding! Accept Crollo's invitation to join the Genii Ryuudan. Reward, Magma Devil Fruit. This time, the system gave him one choice without any time limit. However, the reward moved Allan's heart. The Magma fruit was a Logia fruit with one of the strongest attacks in One Piece's world. With that power, Allan would become strong instantly. When the time comes, even if Ryuudan attacked him, he would melt without any choice. If he decided to join the Genii Ryuudan, he would instantly gain such power. If it were anyone else, he would almost immediately agree to join the Genii Ryuudan. However, Allan didn't have any intention to join them. His reasoning was simple, he didn't want to work under them. If he becomes one of them, he would be forced to do things against his principle. So after thinking this thoroughly, Allan didn't make a choice. The Magma fruit was good, but Allan preferred Aokiji's ice fruit and Kizaru's light fruit in terms of preference. The ice fruit was compatible with his nin, and it will significantly enhance his power. As for light fruit, he would be able to reach light speed. Even Netero's 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva wouldn't be able to touch him. Other than those, he also liked Kuma's Pawpaw fruit. If the reward given by the system were those fruits, he might have joined the Genii Ryuudan. Unfortunately, the reward wasn't any of these fruits. Of course, even if Allan didn't want to join the Genii Ryuudan now, it didn't mean he can't change his mind in the future. Time flew by as the 67 hours of the third phase of the exam passed. Candidates reached the Trick Tower's ground floor one after the other. However, Allan didn't see Killua or Gon. This made him puzzled. Could the test be so complicated that even with Gon and Killua's power, they couldn't pass? Or did they encounter someone they couldn't deal with? Even Hisoka and Illumi were worried. If Gon was really eliminated like this, it would be a shame. Hisoka's joy was discovering interesting youths in the exam and watch them grow stronger. As for Illumi, he was concerned about Killua. If his little brother failed the test, he wouldn't have any reason to continue participating in this exam. Fortunately, 1 minute before the 72 hours come to an end, Gon and Killua got out of the tower. At the same time, Leorio, Kurapika, Hanzo, and Pakal got out as well. The 6 of them were in the same group. Because they were 6 people, conflicts were inevitable between them, which wasted time. Otherwise, with Gon and Killua's abilities, they would have passed in the first 10 hours. After this test, Gon got acquainted with Kurapika and the others, and they became friends. Allan felt a little bit interested now. Because, in the end, Gon and Kurapika became friends in the hunter exam. Lippo gathered the crowd after the third phase came to an end and announced. A total of 31 candidates passed the third phase of the exam. 1 died, 2 are seriously injured and can't continue in the exam, so 28 candidates are remaining. Please board the airship prepared by the association to reach the fourth phase's location, but before that, please draw a card first. After that, Lippo took out a box and placed it in front of everyone. Why do we need to draw cards? Gon raised his hand and asked like a good student in a classroom. Lippo paused then said, well, who can guess? Allan, who knows how this phase will be, said, it should be related to the next phase. Bingo, you are right. Lippo glanced at Allan in appreciation and explained to everyone, in the fourth phase, everyone will have a prey, and they are the prey of others, and those cards decide that. Hearing this, many candidates frowned. Although it wasn't possible to know the detail of the test, they somewhat guessed it. A few people, such as Hisoka and Ryuudan, showed quite an exciting expression. Hunting people was one of their best hobbies. There were 28 candidates, and each one will draw a card. The first person to reach the tower is the first to draw a card and so on. Hisoka was the first to draw a card, followed by Illumi, Crollo, Pakunoda, and Ryuudan. Allan was the sixth to draw a card, and Ponzo was the seventh. Gon and Killua were the last to draw their cards. The number written on the card corresponds to the number the prey will have. In other words, everyone here is a prey and a hunter at the same time. You can hunt others, and others can hurt you. This is the fourth phase of the exam. Chapter 68, Zivil Island. In this phase, no one is to know who is hunting them. The examiner only allowed them to look at their prey. Because of this, even Allan, who watched this as a show, didn't know each candidate's target. For example, in the show, Gon's target was number 44, which is Hisoka, but right now, Allan couldn't confirm if it was still the case. This made Allan slightly uncomfortable. The drawing was done by first come, first served. The first to reach the tower is the first to draw a card, and the last to get there is the last to draw a card, even though everyone wanted to pick their card early. Although many complained about this, in the end, they could only follow this rule. They know that if they don't follow the rules, the examiner will eliminate them. And in only 1 minute, all 28 candidates drew a card from the box. The numbers in the box are exactly the numbers on the badges of the remaining candidates. So, everyone here is a hunter, but also a prey. At the moment, Allan was thinking about the numbers he knew about. Hisoka is number 44, Illumi is number 301, Kurapika is number 404, Hanzo is number 294, Leorio is number 403, Ponzu is number 246, Killua is number 99, and Pakal is number 53. As for Crollo, Pakunoda, and Ryuudan, they had number 33, number 18, and number 100, respectively. Like Hisoka, those three wore their number badges without hiding them at all. For them, it doesn't matter who tried because no one can take them away. This is the Ryuudan's confidence. Allan did the same. He didn't hide his badge, so all candidates here knew his number. The rules of this phase are simple, you need to get 6 points to pass. Getting your praise badge earns you 3 points, and keeping your badge gets you another 3 points. Each badge that isn't your target gets you 1 point. If someone couldn't get his target's badge, he needs 3 badges from other people to pass. Anyone who didn't have 6 points by the end of the time limit has failed to pass. After getting their number, Allan and the other 27 candidates boarded the airship prepared by the association toward the next destination. They reached an isolated island after 3 hours. This phase is conducted on this island. Looking at the island from a high point, it funnily looked like a bra. The candidates had to finish this phase within a week on this island. The island had more than 2,000 small cameras arranged in advance by the Hunters Association to monitor the hunters' every move. Strictly speaking, there is only one rule that restricts the candidates, which never kill each other. If someone snatched someone's badge by killing them, the examiner would eliminate them from the exam. Ryuudan was the most uncomfortable by this rule. He initially thought that he could fight on this island, but Ryuudan felt restricted once he heard this rule. This was convenient for Hisoka, who enjoys toying with opponents rather than killing them. Allan, who is your target? Before entering the island, Gon approached Allan and asked curiously. I will keep it a secret for now. Allan gave him a mysterious smile. He didn't want to reveal his target to anyone, including Gon. Hearing this, Gon couldn't help being curious about this, but since Allan said he wanted to keep it a secret, he didn't ask again. However, he muttered, I won't reveal it either then. Maybe we are each other's target. Allan smiled. Gon froze before he scratched the back of his head and said, I don't know if I'm your target, but I can assure you that you're not mine. Allan raised his brows, really? Yeah, of course. Gon nodded and pointed at Allan's badge. Allan, you're number 123. This isn't the number I drew from the box. Well, then I will tell you that you're not my target as either. Gon was relieved. Great, when I saw you smiling at me, I thought that I'm your target. So, Gon, if you were my target, what would you do? Would you hand your badge directly? Or would fight till the end? Looking at Allan's expression, Gon thought for a while, well, I would fight till the end, even if it's you, Allan, I won't give up easily. I knew you'd say that. Allan smiled. He knew Gon's character well and knew how stubborn he could be. Allan's tone changed as he said gravely, Gon, I want to ask you something. What is it? Gon wondered. Is your target #44? Allan asked seriously. Gon was about to answer, but Killua walked up with his hands in his pockets and said, What, Gon, is your target number 44? What bad luck, number 44 is Hisoka. Seeing Killua's expression, Gon shook his head and said, No, my target isn't #44. Really? Allan was a little suspicious. Killua whistled, if it's not number 44, then it won't be a problem. If it were, it would be troublesome. Gon confirmed, it's really not Hisoka, so don't worry. Hearing this, Allan nodded and didn't say anything else. He knew that initially, Gon's target was Hisoka. However, even with that, he managed to grab Hisoka's badge. But this time, his target isn't Hisoka, but it will be unknown whether he can get his target's badge or not. By the way, who is your target, Killua? Gon asked. I will temporarily keep that a secret. Killua smiled. Allan was speechless. Those two learned too fast. He suddenly regretted not sharing his target with them because now, he was curious about it. But he didn't ask nonetheless. By the way, Allan, do you want to go together in this exam? Gon asked. Allan shook his head, no, let's go separately. After all, it would be meaningless if we teamed up in this exam. Well, I think so as well. Killua nodded as he agreed with Allan. Gon was a little disappointed that both Killua and Allan didn't want to go together in this exam. This time, he had to rely on his power to complete the fourth phase. Soon after, the airship landed on the island, and the candidates were released in the same orders as before. The first to finish the last test is the first to go into the island. The interval between each candidate going into the island is 10 minutes. And since this test had a time limit, the last candidate, who is Gon, or Killua, lost about 270 minutes from that time. When it was their turn, it was already dark outside. Allan didn't rush toward his target but instead made a camp and started a fire. Since it was the first day, there was no need to hurry. Allan knew that Hisoka, Illumi, Crollo, Uvijin, Pakunoda, Killua, and Kurapika had the same idea. On the first day, they would find a place to camp before making plans. After all, this phase time limit is a whole week, which was more than enough to get to their targets. Chapter 69, Respective Targets. On the first day, all candidates spent their night peacefully. Allan healed himself the entire night. He wasn't in a perfect state currently, but he recovered all of his energy. After washing himself by a lake, Allan started making plans. His target is number 18. That badge belonged to Pakunoda. Although she wasn't a strong fighter, Pakunoda was smart. Allan knew that in a one-on-one confrontation, he would be able to snatch her badge, but he wasn't 100% sure because nothing is certain in this world. He was indeed superior in combat power, but she was too smart, and he can't deal with her quickly. Pakunoda most likely won't act alone. She will be with Crollo and Uvijin. He wasn't about that because this phase of the exam is different from previous ones, but if she was alone, he could successfully snatch her batch. If she weren't alone, it would be tough to finish this test. Even with all of his power, he wouldn't be able to sneak in and snatch Pakunoda's batch, which means he had to deal with Krollo and Ryuudan as well. If she wasn't alone, Allan had to find another way. Suddenly, the system's notification echoed in his head. 1. Snatch target's batch within the time limit. Reward, increase in quantity by 2000 point. 2. Take 5 points in 1 week. Reward, senzu beans x1. Allan's eyes lit up. The first option was his goal. Even without the reward, he will still try it. Therefore, he decided on the second option. Since he would get Pakunoda's batch, that's 3 points, and he would need 2 more badges. Although it was difficult, the reward was satisfactory. A senzu bean is a magical bean from Dragon Ball. Anyone who takes a senzu bean can go for 10 days without eating, and if you're exhausted and injured, it will heal you almost instantly. As Allan was planning his strategy, other candidates were also making their moves. Gon leaned against a tree as he thought about how to proceed. At this moment, Gon was frowning. Hisoka wasn't his target, which was indeed fortunate. Instead, it was Ryuudan. My target is that big guy who is constantly fighting with Allan. I don't think I can win at all. I'm really unlucky. Gon sighed. Although he never fought Ryuudan, he knew that the latter was a master nin user. He is too strong. I can't fight him head-on, otherwise, it would be impossible for me to snatch his batch. Gon thought. He tried to think of a way to fight Ryuudan in his head, but Ryuudan would just slam him down each time. In other words, he had no chance in fighting Ryuudan head-on. But, even knowing how strong his target was, Gon didn't think even once about giving up. I can't just give up because he is strong. Staying here is also not an option. I should get going and make a plan. Gon jumped down from the tree and started moving. He needed to move fast, find his target within a week, and snatch his batch, or else he won't pass. In another part of the forest, Ryuudan and Krollo met. Chief, who is your target? As soon as they met, Ryuudan casually asked. Krollo smiled, it's number 246, the girl named Ponzu. Ponzu? Girl? Ryuudan was dumbfounded and shook his head, I don't seem to remember her. It's the girl who stayed with Allan in the trick tower. Oh, that girl. Ryuudan remembered her and said playfully, Chief, will you be able to do it? She is cute. Maybe it's not convenient for you. I can help you deal with this if you want. Krollo shook his head, no, I will do it myself. Ryuudan, who is your target? Krollo asked. Ryuudan replied, it's number 404. Do you know who it is, Chief? #404. Krollo frowned. Ryuudan saw the frown and curiously asked, what's the matter, Chief? Krollo replied, Ryuudan, number 404 isn't an ordinary guy. Ryuudan was taken aback, who is it? It's not Hisoka, is it? Krollo shook his head, Hisoka is #44. So, is it Illumi Zaldik? Illumi is #301. No, Is it Allan? Krollo shook his head, a wrong answer again, Allan is #123. Ryuudan didn't find any other candidate to make Krollo, Chief, who is #404. Krollo thought for a bit then said, Ryuudan, number 404 is the blonde guy, do you remember him? Ryuudan thought for a bit before he said, the blonde guy, I remember his name is Kara something. Krollo nodded, yes, that's him. His companions seemed to call him Karapika. Ryuudan gave Krollo a thumb up and said, Chief, you really know everyone. I barely remember a few. Krollo said, Ryuudan, there is one more thing I think you should know. What's the matter? Ryuudan asked, a little confused. You may not recognize that guy, but he seems to be a survivor of the Kurta clan. Kurta clan? Ryuudan frowned as he tried remembering them. Did you remember? It's the clan with the scarlet eyes. Hearing this, Ryuudan shouted as he remembered them, really? Is that guy one of the red-eyed people? They were wiped by us a few years ago, right? Krollo thought for a bit and said, although I'm not sure if he is one of them, he is wearing the iconic clothes of the Kurta clan. Maybe he was away when we attacked the clan and escaped afterward. Chapter 70, Hunting. After listening to Krollo, Ryuudan grinned with excitement. Chief, that mission wasn't easy. Those guys from the Kurta clan were quite strong. Krollo nodded, yes, once they get angry, their eyes turn scarlet red like a beautiful fire, and their power increase very much. They were impressive. Yuvajin said, but, Chief, you sold those beautiful eyes in the end, right? Because once I obtained them, they weren't as exciting as before. We humans are such creatures, we covet what isn't in our hands, but once we obtain it, we lose interest. Krollo said calmly. Although he felt sorry for killing all of the Kurta clan, he didn't repent or care at all now. It was as if his past self committed those crimes, and it had nothing to do with the current him. Yuvajin was the same, he once got interested in women, doing different things with them, but after a while, he found out that fighting is more interesting. Still, Yuvajin showed a slight interest in the Kurta clan's survivor. Chief, when did you know that number 404 is a survivor of the Kurta clan? Krollo replied truthfully, when I saw him in the first phase of the exam. His clothes were very eye-catching, so I instantly remembered them. I originally didn't intend to pay attention to that guy since he survived that catastrophe. But since he is your target, I told you about him. What will you do, Yuvajin? I will, of course, take his badge and kill him, so he won't be able to take revenge in the future. Yuvajin was eager to fight and kill Kurapika. Krollo shook his head, if you do that, you will be eliminated. Yuvajin nodded, well, I will take his badge and break his legs. Well, just don't kill him. Krollo agreed. Yuvajin grinned, Chief, if I let him know that we are the one who killed his clan, what would be his reaction? He will get angry, and his eyes will turn red in an instant. It's not hard to imagine how angry Kurapika would get if Yuvajin told him. Logan grinned evilly and said, that's exciting. Chief, do I let him know? No, you can't do that. Krollo denied his request. Why? Yuvajin was puzzled. Krollo explained, Yuvajin, you are only doing this for your pleasure. You want to see him angry and full of hatred, right? But this will bring instability to the group. Although I don't think he can do anything as the sole survivor, deliberately revealing about identity will do us no good here. At least, wait till the exam is over and do whatever you want. Yuvajin was a little unhappy, but he still accepted, I understand, I won't make messy. Then, I will see you later. I'm going to find my target. Krollo said. Aren't we going together? Yuvajin was a little surprised because they always went together. Krollo shook his head and said, no, let's take our badges and meet later. Also, if you come across Pakunoda, bring her along. We can't communicate on the island, so I don't know where she is, but she should be going after her target. By the way, Chief, who is Pakunoda's target? Yuvajin asked curiously. She told me it was #99. Who is that? The silver-haired kid with the little hedgehog named Gon who is with Allan. His name is Killua. Oh, it's that kid. He doesn't seem ordinary, but Pakunoda should be able to handle him. Well, don't underestimate her, Krollo said. Then, I'll go now, Chief. I will deal with number 404 first. His name is Kurapika, right? I think it is. Okay, then I'm leaving. See you later. Yuvajin directly jumped on a tall tree and roared like a beast, #404, wait for me. On the north side of the island, Kurapika, who was walking through the wood, suddenly stopped. He was sure that no one was following him, but he had an uneasy feeling in his heart for some reason. He also heard something from the other side, but he couldn't understand what was said because of the dense trees. He didn't think much about it and continued his plan. Although this exam's time limit is a week, it wasn't easy to find his target. His target was number 44, the magician, Hisoka. Although Kurapika didn't speak with Hisoka before, he observed him closely, and his intuition told him that Hisoka was dangerous. If possible, Kurapika didn't want to find trouble with him. But there is no way now. He needs to take that number 44 badge. If he gave up on getting Hisoka's badge, he would have to take 3 other badges, which was difficult. So he decided to go for Hisoka first, and if he couldn't do it, he would change his goal. I need to find Hisoka's location, then make a plan and be careful of anyone going after me. Kurapika muttered. In the west of the island, Hisoka was leaning against a tree and enjoying the breeze. Hisoka yawned with a lazy expression. Several butterflies flew around his shoulder. His wound was quite deep, but Hisoka didn't care much about it. He can handle it casually. He used his texture surprise, flimsy lies, to cover his injury. As he removed the flimsy lies from his shoulder, his wound had already healed quite a bit. But it wasn't completely healed either. Anyone with a good nose can smell the blood, which was why those butterflies danced around Hisoka. They weren't normal butterflies. They are known as hemotropic butterfly, and they can detect the scent of blood from a good distance. Hisoka didn't care about this. He jumped on top of a tall tree and placed his right hand over his eyes to act as a spectacle, and looked far away. Soon, he found his target. Note: Uvijin is Kurapika. Gon is Uvijin. Pakunoda is Killua. Allan is Pakunoda. Crollo is Ponzu. Chapter 71, Hisoka's Killing Intent. Allan walked in the bushes without hiding his figure. He didn't hide anything at all. Allan hung his badge on his chest without any fear. If someone came looking for him, he could see his number without any hindrance, and if he wanted to take it, he made it seem easy. He wanted to expose himself deliberately. There were two reasons for this: he wanted to attract other candidates to try and take his badge, and he was lazy. Although he still didn't know who is after him, he was confident in keeping his badge from whoever that is after him. After walking for a while, Allan suddenly heard a scream not far away. The scream was quite pained. It seems someone fell into a trap. It can also be a strategy to attract others to the sound in the hope of getting a badge for free. Even if it was a trap, Allan wanted to take a look. Driven by his curiosity, Allan turned around and walked toward the source of the scream. About a kilometer later, Allan saw a man lying down on the ground. Allan didn't have any impression of this person. He only knew that he was one of the 28 candidates but didn't know his name. At this time, there were several playing cards struck on his body. The man continued to scream as he lost his mobility. The cards were embedded on both of his legs, arms, abdomen, shoulders, and face. Allan knew who was responsible for this instantly. It was one of Hisoka's masterpieces. At this moment, a few playing cards flew toward Allan swiftly. Allan was aware of his surroundings and moved his body slightly to the side, avoiding them. At this time, Hisoka walked from behind a tree. "Hisoka, do you want to die?" Seeing Hisoka appearing, Allan frowned with displeasure and said in an angry tone. If someone else were here, he would definitively be dead now. Hisoka squinted his eyes and smiled, "Don't be angry. I'm just saying hello." Allan snorted, "I don't like your greeting. If you attack me next time, I will fight back." Hisoka smiled and changed the subject. "Allan, who is your goal?" Allan said coldly, "It is not you anyway." "That's great. If I'm your target, I would be in danger." Hisoka sighed, in relief. Allan didn't believe Hisoka in the slightest. If his target was really Hisoka, the latter would be very excited. Allan pointed at the man lying on the ground and asked, "Is he your target?" Hisoka shook his head and said, "He is number 118, and I don't know his name. I just happened to see him, he isn't my target." Hearing this, Allan frowned. Hisoka seemed to hunt anyone he stumbles upon randomly. If that's the case, would Hisoka fight him now? Seeing Allan's wary expression, Hisoka squinted his eyes and said, "Although I intended to find 3 people to get my points, I'm not going to fight you." "Who is your target?" Allan asked suddenly. Hisoka replied truthfully, "My goal is #80. #80. Allan wanted to make sure. "Do you know who it is?" Hisoka asked. Allan replied, "It doesn't matter. You will hunt others anyway, whether it's number 80 or not." "No, I changed my mind. I want to get number 80 now." Allan sighed. Seeing Allan sigh, Hisoka suggested, "Allan, in exchange for the information about number 80, I will give you the number 118 badge I just got. How about it? It is worth 1 point." Allan relaxed and said, "Well, listen well. It should be Uvijin." Hisoka was stunned for a moment, "Is it true?" Allan secretly smiled as he saw Hisoka's expression. It seems like he was reluctant in provoking Uvijin. "What is it, Hisoka? Are you scared?" Allan teased. "No, it's just troublesome. That lunatic is not easy to deal with." Hisoka seemed to have a headache. However, as he looked at Allan's smiling face, Hisoka knew something. He directly looked at Allan and said, "You're lying, aren't you? Number 80 isn't Ryuudan, right?" Allan knew that he shouldn't continue playing with Hisoka. If he believed him and fought Ryuudan, it would have been good, but since he didn't believe it, it wasn't good to continue deceiving him. Okay, number 80 is a girl named Piper. She uses a sniper. Hisoka thought for a bit and nodded, so it's her, I know which one now. Hisoka gave Allan the number 118 badge as he promised, and with it, Allan needed another 4 points. He wanted to get those 4 points with only 2 badges. One is Pakunoda's and another random badge. Allan decided to take the second point first before going after Pakunoda. Allan raised his head and looked at Hisoka, who said, "What's the matter? Are you still trying to get me a badge?" Allan sneered, "I thought about it, but forget it. It too much trouble for almost nothing." After saying this, Allan waved his hand and said, "I'll take my leave then." Hisoka suddenly remembered something and asked, "Speaking of which, Allan, you know who is Crollo and the others, right? Including Illumi and I." Allan nodded, "Yes, I know many things about everyone, including the fact that you're a fake spider." As he said this, Allan directly left using flash steps without waiting for Hisoka to reply. He didn't want to be questioned by Hisoka after all. Seeing Allan leave, Hisoka narrowed his eyes. "He even knows that I'm a fake member of the Ryuudan, so most likely, he knows that I joined them to fight Crollo. Who is this guy? How does he know so many secrets? This is really making me curious. No one knows about that except for Illumi. Did he tell Allan? No, I don't think so. Illumi isn't someone with a big mouth. So who told Allan?" Thinking about this, Hisoka suddenly thought of something else. If Allan tells Crollo, what will Crollo do? I look forward to it. But I will be in trouble. Maybe he would kick me out of the Ryuudan and then hunt me down himself. Hisoka felt so excited that he couldn't hold his killing intent down. No, I was provoked by Allan and couldn't tone down my killing intent. I must kill someone quickly. As he said this, Hisoka looked at the cameras in the bushes that would supervise all candidates in this exams phase. There are cameras everywhere. If they saw me kill someone, they will eliminate me from the exam, but I must kill someone. My killing intent is already aroused. His eyes fell on the number 11 candidate on the ground. No, this person is already defeated by me. Even if I kill him, it won't quell my killing intent. I must find another target. With his killing intent shrouding him, Hisoka started walking with a scary face. If he finds anyone right now, he will kill him no matter what, or else his killing intent won't calm down. On the other hand, Allan suddenly felt the killing intent. This killing intent, is it Hisoka's? Did he release this much killing intent because I knew he was a fake spider, which provoked his killing intent? Allan thought. To be safe, Allan wanted to make sure. He took a closer look at Hisoka's killing intent and found out that it looked kind of evil, as if demons were dancing around Hisoka. Then he realized that Hisoka wasn't going toward him, instead, he was moving away. While Allan was confirming his guess, an arrow was released at him from behind a tree 30 meters away. Chapter 72, Pockle. Allan's figure disappeared, and the arrow struck a tree in the distance. Allan reappeared beside the arrow and took it in his hand. It was a 30 centimeters long arrow, with an elastic head, which lacked penetrative powers. Such an arrow can't kill anyone, but the arrowhead must be dipped in anesthetic, which will numb and incapacitate the target. Allan thought for a moment and knew who targeted him. There is only one person amongst the 27 candidates who uses a bow. It was candidate number 53, Pockle. Pockle hid behind a tree and didn't dare stick his head out. When someone concentrates on something, they won't detect the danger coming from other things. Therefore, Pockle picked the time when Allan was concentrating on Hisoka's killing intent to attack. However, he didn't expect Allan to dodge it easily. It's almost as if he had eyes on the back of his head. Pockle's chest was rising and falling violently, and it wasn't because he was exhausted, but because he failed his sneak attack and was anxious. Since he can dodge the arrow from behind, my location is probably known to him now, right? Pockle took a deep breath as he calmed his breathing and prepared to leave without making a sound. But as he moved, Allan jumped suddenly behind him and said, "Found you, sneaky little mouse." What? Pockle immediately took out an arrow reflexively and placed it on his bow, aiming at the voice source. Allan stood still staring at Pakal. When Allan concentrated on Hisoka's killing intent, he was in the most vigilant state possible, and to his surprise, the person who attacked him was Pakal. Looking at Allan, Pakal was surprised and couldn't say anything. Obviously, this is the first time something like this happened to him. He was confident in his archery and hiding, but Allan still caught him. So, as Pakal looked at Allan in disbelief, he asked, "How did you find me?" "It's very simple. I followed the trajectory of the arrow." Allan replied. "No, I mean, did you know that I was following you from early in the morning?" asked Pakal. Allan shook his head, "I didn't." "What?" Pakal exclaimed. Allan sneered, "If you didn't attack me, I wouldn't have noticed you at all. That doesn't mean I'm defenseless. On the contrary, I was prepared for any sneak attacks." Pakal looked at Allan in surprise, "In other words, you are deliberately making yourself looking careless to bait others into attacking you." "Bingo, but you get no reward." Pakal sighed, "No wonder you didn't seem to be vigilant at all. It turned out you are acting as bait. So, are you ready?" Allan stepped forward and sneered. "What do you want?" Pakal asked. Although he aimed his arrow at Allan, he didn't dare shoot. He knew that if he confronted Allan directly, he wouldn't be able to defeat him. Allan said coldly, "I'm your target, right?" Pakal nodded with an ugly expression. He drew number 123, which is Allan's badge number. He felt unlucky to get this target. Since he failed his sneak attack, he couldn't do anything at all to Allan. Allan pointed at his badge and said, "Now, my badge is right here. Come and get it if you have the skill to do so." Pakal hesitated as he looked at Allan's badge in front of him, however, he realized that it's impossible. If he stretched his hand and take it, his hand would most likely fall down into the ground, right? Although Allan didn't have any sharp weapon, Pakal still had this hunch and felt danger stronger than ever before. Pakal hesitated before he raised his hands and said, "I surrender." "Very well, you got your life back," Allan said. If Pakal dared to take a step forward and grab his badge, Allan would have slashed this stupid guy. Fortunately for him, Pakal was aware of the danger here, and after hearing Allan's words, he became even more frightened. He squeezed a bitter smile and said, "Allan, I will give you the badge, and this is over, okay?" Allan sneered, "Of course I will take the badge, but you sneak attacked me. I can't let that go, now can I?" Pakal was shocked, "Then, what do you want? Do you want to kill me?" "I did attack you before, but I didn't want to kill you. The arrow was covered in anesthesia. My purpose was to numb you and take your badge. I definitively didn't have any intention to kill you." Allan puckered his ear with his little finger and said, "Don't be nervous. I, of course, know that. Otherwise, do you think you will be standing now if you attacked to kill me?" At his current level, Allan can feel the killing intent easily, and he can also know whether the attacker wanted to kill him or not. Pakal didn't lie. The arrow he shot was aimed to incapacitate him and not kill, and because of this, he didn't want to hurt Pakal. However, it is a fact that Pakal still attacked him. Breathing a sigh of relief, Pakal asked, "Since you won't kill me, can you let me go? I have a simple task for you. Find someone for me, and I will let you go," Allan said. Pakal's ears perked as he asked, "Who is it?" #18, the woman named Pakunoda, Allan replied. Pakal thought for a bit before he said, #18? Is it that blonde woman with a hooked nose and revealing clothes? That's her. Allan nodded. Pakal was revealing, knowing that number 18 was Allan's target. "So, she is your target, huh?" Pakal said in a deep voice, "That woman isn't easy to deal with. Do you want my help to get her badge?" Allan sneered and said sarcastically, "You can deal with ordinary people with your skills, but dealing with people like them is simple suicide for you. You can't even touch that woman. I only need you to tell me about her location." Although he felt uncomfortable as Allan ridiculed him, Pakal could only admit that it's the truth. Allan said, "I will give you 2 days. After that, head west to find me." Allan thought for a bit, then added, "If you can help me find her, I will consider giving you back your badge." Hearing this, Pakal couldn't hide his joy. "Are you serious?" "Of course." Allan narrowed his eyes. "Okay, I do my best." Pakal patted his chest. Looking his back, a faint smile appeared on Allan's mouth. With Pakal's help, his chance of finding Pakunoda was doubled. No, it's more than double, since that guy can search for people better than him. Now, this didn't take much effort at all. Not only did I get Pakhal's batch, but I also got a help to find my target. Allan thought with satisfaction. As for Pakhal running away, Allan wasn't worried at all. Because if he finds Pakunoda, Pakhal can get his badge back. He would do his best to get it back. Well, I just have to move to the west of this island now. As he thought about it, Allan was already moving toward the west. He now had 2 badges, the first is number 118 he got from Hisoka, and the second is number 53 he got from Pakhal. Next, he just needed the number 18 badge, and he would have collected the required 5 points to get the senzu bean. Chapter 73, Number 99, Killua's Aldique. 3 men wearing hats surrounded a silver-haired boy on the south side of the island on the 3rd day. No, it should be said that the silver-haired boy was the one who cornered the 3 men, as he stared at them like prey with a sneer on his mouth. Those 3 were candidate number 197, Amurai, candidate number 198, Emori, and candidate number 199, Umarai. The silver-haired boy was Killua, with the number 99 badge. The Amurai brothers were quite upset. They were grown-up men, and here is a boy targeting them. No one would be happy if they were looked down on so much. Umarai glared at Killua. Boy, why are you blocking our way? Because one of you is my target, Killua replied with a relaxed expression. His eyes fell on candidate number 198, Emori. Although his target is Emori, the latter didn't separate from his brothers, so he could only follow the 3 brothers. After confirming that they won't separate, he didn't want to wait anymore and decided to attack the 3 of them together. Emori was the youngest brother and the most afraid of death. He never was courageous, but he was a cautious person. When he saw Killua, he was shocked because he felt that Killua was ready to attack at any given moment. His older brothers saw him nervous and immediately scolded him, "Hey, Emori, are you afraid of a kid?" Emori felt dull as his brothers reprimanded him. He rushed at Killua, "Go to hell, boy." He was trying to encourage himself with each word. Killua sighed, "Stupid guy." As Emori threw a fist at Killua, the latter disappeared before his eyes. "What?" Emori was taken aback. "Behind you, Emori." His 2 brothers warned him at the same time and rushed forward to rescue him. But Killua was faster, his nails sharpened as he placed them on Emori's neck. "Don't do anything rash if you want to live." "Damn it!" Umarai gritted his teeth and cursed. "What do you want?" Amurai, the eldest brother, asked with a frown. Killua exceeded their expectations. Emori was captured, and they could do nothing right now. They were thinking about how to counterattack, and suddenly, one of the brothers said, "Yes, this test forbid us from killing the target to get the badge. If you kill him, the examiner will eliminate you." "Yes, let Emori go, we will let you go if you do, and you can leave." Umarai stepped up after Amurai tried to pressure Killua with the exam's rule. Killua squinted and said coldly, "Don't be so naive. Do you think that I care about the rules? I can kill him anytime, including both of you." The killing intent emanated by Killua made them nervous. It's definitively wasn't a bluff. "If you dare threaten me or provoke me, not only Emori, but you too will die as well." The indifferent voice made them fear this boy. They were horrified and finally understood. Even if Killua didn't take Emori as a hostage, he could kill them easily if he was unhappy. Amurai took a deep breath and pretended to be calm. "I see, you can take Emori's badge. We won't go after you." "No, you will hand over your badges as well." Killua sneered and put away his killing intent. Although his goal was only Emori's badge, he didn't want to let go of Amurai and Umarai as they annoyed him. Both brothers looked upset when they heard Killua's words, but their lives were more important than the hunter exam. If they don't hand over the badges, their brother will die, and they would follow right after. Therefore, they threw their badges without hesitation toward Killua. Bye. After getting the badges, Killua disappeared. "With this, I can pass the exam, and I have 2 extra points. How should I use them? Maybe I should go to Gon and give him the extra ones if he needs them." On the way, Killua heard a bang. It was a gunshot, a very close one. Killua felt danger approaching. At the moment he felt danger, Killua jumped away like a cheetah. A bullet passed by, then a second one, then another one. Killua kept dodging the bullets and hid behind a tree. He couldn't see where the bullets were coming from at all. After the gunshot stopped, a tall blonde woman in revealing clothes stepped out, holding a revolver in her hand pointing at the tree Killua was hiding behind. Killua, who was relaxed before, was now serious as he felt the danger around him. Is it the Amurai brothers? No, it's not them. The three idiots don't have guns, and they aren't this good. The accuracy of those bullets could threaten me. They were very accurate. Who is it? Killua quickly jumped up high into the tree and stood on a branch before looking down to see a blonde woman holding a gun. So, it's that girl. Killua was a little surprised. This blonde woman was Pakunoda. It seems like I'm her target. Killua thought. Very quickly, Pakunoda turned the muzzle toward Killua and fired without hesitation. Killua avoided the bullets one by one as he jumped from a tree to another. The pistol should be able to fire at max 15 bullets. After 15 bullets, she will need to reload, and I can go and kill her at that time. Killua made his plan. Bang! Bang! After a few more shots, Killua continued dodging while waiting for an opportunity to attack. After the 13th shot, Pakunoda stopped shooting. Is she going to reload? Killua hesitated as he didn't know whether to attack or not because there should be 2 more bullets inside the magazine. Don't hide. This Oni-chan will let you go if you hand over your batch. Pakunoda said with her unique charm. An average kid won't refuse this, but Killua sneered as his voice traveled from behind a tree. Okay, Oni-chan, but you have to throw your gun over, and I will give you the batch. Annoying kid. Pakunoda fired without hesitation. Killua was startled because the bullet arrived from the side, which means that Pakunoda already knew his location. Killua turned over quickly, but he couldn't escape as the bullets blocked his path. At the same time, he saw another bullet. Pakunoda stopped firing, and Killua immediately turned around and ran toward her. However, before he could do anything, Pakunoda was already aiming her gun at him. She quickly pulled the trigger, and the 16th bullet flew. Oops, my mistake. Killua's pupil dilated as he watched the bullet moving toward him. Bang! Blood splashed as the bullet hit Killua's left shoulder. Oh! Pakunoda was startled. She didn't expect Killua to twist his body and avoid the bullet like that. However, it didn't end there. Killua endured the pain on his shoulder and quickly rushed forward and kicked the gun from her hand before launching his counter-attack. Chapter 74, The Law of the Jungle. Pakunoda didn't expect a kid like Killua would have such an amazing speed. As Killua kicked the gun, he proceeded to kick her on the abdomen. Pakunoda felt blood in her throat. It has been so long since the last time she was hurt. She was even more surprised by Killua's power. At this time, Killua took advantage of his time and directly tried to slash Pakunoda's shoulder. As a killer, he knew that you must end the fight in one attack. If you can't, then you have to deal as much damage as you can. Although his last blow wasn't aimed to kill Pakunoda, it was enough to instantly make anyone lose power in their body. Killua's purpose was to make Pakunoda lose her ability to move. Don't be too smug, smelly kid. Pakunoda blocked Killua's attack with her hand to his surprise. She caught his wrist, but Killua didn't give up as he sharpened his nails in his other hand and thrust it forward. Since he was born, Killua received hellish training, and due to that training, he was able to change the muscle structure in specific parts of his body, making them stronger. His 5 fingers trick is the same, and he made them resemble the claws of beasts. Moreover, if he wanted to, he can take out even a beating heart from the chest instantly. However, Pakunoda wasn't an average person. She used her chest muscle to clamp Killua's hand. Killua's hand plunged into her chest, completely unable to penetrate it, and it was stuck there. That is very dangerous, kid. I didn't expect you to know how to change your muscles structure to increase your power. If I didn't use 10 to defend, I might have been injured. Pakunoda said with a sigh of relief. Damn it! I can't pull my hand out. I didn't expect this woman to know the same technique as me. Is she an assassin? Killua thought as he was cornered. But he could feel strange energy on Pakunoda's body, and he heard her say she used 10. And suddenly, he remembers Gon talking about something like that, the energy of life in any living body that some people could harness to attack and defend, Nen. This woman can also use Nen. Killua stared sharply at Pakunoda while the latter said coldly. Little monster, now I will give you a choice, obediently hand over your batch, or die here. Damn it! Killua tried to break free but couldn't move at all. He can feel that if he continued to resist, Pakunoda would kill him. Don't struggle boy, you have great potential, but you're currently not my match. If you die here, it will be meaningless. Pakunoda reminded Killua, my patience is limited, don't try to challenge my bottom line. Killua coldly snorted like a kid before he said, I understand, let go, you hag. Good. Pakunoda let him go without hesitation, which made Killua surprised and asked, aren't you afraid that I will escape? Pakunoda replied calmly, you have a gunshot wound, so you can't escape. I see. Killua nodded. Indeed, his left shoulder was injured, and if he doesn't stop the bleeding, he will lose consciousness or even die. It was impossible to escape this. Killua took out his badge before he said, wait. Pakunoda frowned, what is it? Are you regretting your decision? Killua shook his head and said, actually, I have 4 badges. One of them is mine, and the others I got from the Amurai brothers. Although I'm your target, I can give you the 3 badges which amount to 3 points, the same as my badge. Pakunoda didn't think about it, and resolutely refused, no, I just want your badge. Why? Killua asked in confusion. Pakunoda said coldly, because you're my target, I'm not interested in other badges. Damn it! Killua didn't expect Pakunoda to be so hard to deal with. In other words, she is a woman with principle. She won't take the badges of others, except for her target. Even though he was unhappy, Killua could only hand over his badge. As a professional assassin, it was shameful for him to be robbed by a woman. But he had no other way, she was stronger than him, and as an assassin, he knew that the weak eats the strong, the law of the jungle. The strong can take anything from the weak, and the weak could only obey. Just like now, if he doesn't hand over his badge, she would kill him. It was unnecessary to sacrifice his life for his badge. But to have him hand it over himself was an insult for him. I must get it back. Killua thought secretly while clenching his fist. But before that, Killua lowered his head and glanced at his shoulder. Although the bullet didn't penetrate his entire shoulder, it was still inside his collarbone. If he leaves it alone, his life will be in danger due to blood loss and possible infection. But he can resolve the problem himself. In just 2 minutes, Killua removed the bullet with 2 fingers and stopped the bleeding. The bullet was round, so it has no penetrative power. Which meant, from the start, Pakunoda didn't want to kill him. Killua already knew she didn't want to kill him when she attacked because he didn't feel any killing intent. Damn that woman, are you looking down on me? Killua didn't thank Pakunoda for her kindness, instead, he felt insulted. His pride received a huge impact. I must take back my badge from that woman, but I have to be careful about how to do it, Killua vowed in his heart. He knew that this was just the 3rd day, and 4 days remained till the deadline. The time was enough, but his strength wasn't enough. Killua knew that even if he weren't injured, he wouldn't be able to fight Pakunoda. Although he didn't lack combat experience, he was far behind in terms of power. The most severe disadvantage is that he didn't train in Nen. And now, he had a gun wound on his shoulder. Although he removed the bullet and stopped the bleeding, he can't use too much power, which will affect his recovery. So, he can't rely on himself to get back the badge. Well, who is the one hunting Pakunoda? If I find him, maybe I can cooperate with him and get back my badge. But there is a problem, he still didn't know who is targeting her, and it won't be easy to find him. Another point is, does the one hunting her have more power than Pakunoda? The ones who are stronger than she is, are Hisoka, Gitaraker, who is always with Hisoka, and the other 2 partners of this woman, and of course, Allan. Assuming that one of them targets Pakunoda, the only one who will cooperate with me is Allan. It's obviously impossible for her partners to cooperate, and Hisoka and Gitaraker are difficult to deal with as well. So, the only one left is Allan. But I've got no idea if Allan was hunting Pakunoda or not. Killua could only follow Pakunoda, as it was useless to find Allan if he wasn't targeting her. Chapter 75, Tracking. Pakunoda was thinking about meeting with Crollo and Yuvajin while Killua followed her without her knowing. The communication on this island is blocked, and there is no way to contact anyone, and it wasn't easy to find them. With Yuvajin and the chief's power, it isn't difficult to get their target's badge. They may have already returned to the starting point. Pakunoda looked around for a while before deciding to return to the starting point. However, after getting there, Pakunoda didn't find anyone at all. Chief and Ryuudan aren't here, which means that they still didn't get their target's batch. Or they got them but didn't rush back. Ryuudan is a fanatic after all, and only Chief can control him. Should I stay here and wait for them? Or should I go ahead and find them? Pakunoda frowned. There are still 4 days before the end of this phase of the exam. If she stayed on the island, it means that someone can target her. Other than Chief and Ryuudan, only 3 people from the remaining 25 candidates can pose any danger to me. They are Hisoka, Gitaraka, Illumi, and Allan. If one of them is after me, and I stay alone, they will attack at any time. Therefore, to ensure my safety, I must join with Chief and Ryuudan. As long as I'm with them, the risk is minimized. No one attacked Pakunoda yet, but this didn't mean that no one was targeting her. However, waiting at the starting point is a significant risk because this place was vacant. So, staying here is equivalent to exposing oneself. For example, just now, Pakunoda felt that someone was observing her from the forest. Although she couldn't pinpoint his location, she definitively felt a gaze on her. This might be the candidate after her batch. Could it be that silver-haired kid is following me? Pakunoda thought secretly but quickly discarded this suspicion. No, that's very unlikely. That kid is an assassin. He should be clear about the gap between the two of us. But this doesn't rule out the possibility of him following me. All in all, if I stay here and wait, it will be easy for anyone to attack me. Pakunoda acted decisively and once again entered the forest. In the forest, Pakul stood on a branch of a big tree as he looked at Pakunoda. Sure enough, returning to the starting point is the easiest way to find her. That woman got her target's badge already and is waiting for the exam to end at the starting point. But why did she leave again? Is she going to find her companions? If that woman is allowed to join her companions, then even Allan won't be able to get her badge. Forget it. It's none of my business. I just need to tell Allan about her whereabouts. I hope he can keep his promise and return my badge. After memorizing the way Pakunoda went, Pakul moved to the west of the island. After Pakul left, a silver-haired kid jumped down from a tree. That guy is Pakul. Killua frowned as he saw Pakul leave. Why did he follow Pakunoda? Is that woman his target? Or is he like me? As he thought about the second possibility, Killua ruled it out after remembering Pakunoda's words. She said she wouldn't take anything other than her target's batch. In other words, Pakul is probably tracking Pakunoda waiting for an opportune moment to attack. This seems to be the most reasonable explanation. However, Killua wasn't optimistic about Pakul's power. Although he wasn't bad, he was but a rookie in front of Pakunoda. There is absolutely no meaning to cooperate with him. At this time, Killua saw Pakul move to the west, which made Killua suspicious. Is he helping someone looking for his target? Is there someone going after Pakunoda? Killua made a guess. At dusk, on the west of the island, Allan sat cross-legged in front of a campfire. He was roasting an unknown beast that was as big as a buffalo. The fragrant smell of grilled meat spread all over, permeating while Allan waited for the beast to get ready. He got a new ability in the second phase of the exam. It was Nan's stomach. He can turn food into Nan. 1 kilogram is equivalent to 10 points, and he can consume a ton at a time. His limit is 10,000 points currently. A beast weighing about 300 kilograms was devoured by Allan in less than 1 hour, leaving a skeleton behind. Although Allan's food intake was higher than ordinary people, he can eat a few servings than them. The only reason he could eat this much now is due to Nan's stomach. This meal allowed him to recover his stamina and covered the excess to Nan and store it in his body. Those points won't increase the quantity of Nan Allan had, but they will serve as a battery. I'm so laid back, if Pakul doesn't find Pakunoda, I will have to go find her myself, which is troublesome. Allan laid on the ground while looking at the night sky. At this time, a figure appeared beside Allan. You're here. Feeling the familiar presence, Allan sat up and looked at Pakul. At this time, Pakul was panting. He was running the entire day without rest. When he smelled the grilled meat fragrance that still lingered in the air, his stomach grumbled as he said with dissatisfaction, "Here I'm looking for your target, while you sit here, eat and look at the stars by yourself. That must have been hard on you, but I didn't force you to find my target, right? You volunteered to find my target to retrieve your batch, no. Pakal couldn't find any word to refute Allan's. Allan smiled and said, it seems that you have found her? Where is she? She is going south, Pakal answered truthfully. Is she alone? Yes. Pakal nodded. If what Pakal said is true, then now is the best time to move. He needs to get her badge before she joins up with Krollo and Yuvajan. Pakal asked, Allan, I have told you her location. Can you give me back my badge? Allan shook his head and smiled, I'm sorry, it's impossible to do so now. Pakal was surprised, why? Are you going back on your words? I need you to lead me there now, and then I will return the badge to you, Allan said. Pakal said solemnly, in other words, you don't believe me, right? Do you think I'm lying? It's not that I don't believe you. I just want to confirm it. Allan laughed. He should make sure that Pakal did find Pakunoda. It wasn't a question of belief, but a basic in every transaction. Okay, lead the way. Allan put out the fire and said to Pakal. Although Pakal was dissatisfied, he led the way obediently to retrieve his batch. Allan's eyes were shining. This time, he was confident. If Pakunoda willingly hands over her batch, nothing will happen, but if she resists, then he can only use force. As of whether this will offend the Ryuudan or not, he can consider this later.